Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. Trevor, Sikkema, and Dalton Wasserman here with you guys to recap everything that we saw from the Sunday slate, Week 14 in the NFL. We're coming close to the end. Only 4 weeks left, Dalton. This is the final stretch here.
It's the home stretch, and there's a lot to talk about with this postseason race. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I know. I think that there's always a lot to talk about when the season opens, right? I think the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, certainly you're learning about what teams are. And then we have a couple weeks in between where we're trying to sift out, okay, what's real and what's fake. Now it's the playoff push. Now, even if it might be a little bit fool's goldish, we're at the point where if you start hitting it hot, if you get on a run here, that's sometimes what the playoffs are all about. New York Giants fans know that very, very well with their 2 Super Bowls. It felt like, all right, maybe not the strongest teams ever, but you hit it hot in December, you do incredible things like even beat the undefeated New England Patriots team. I don't know if we're going to get a scenario like that this year, but.
Well, I mean, look, it's a weird year because it feels like we're bound to see something that's never happened before, right? It could be a three-peat. It could be somebody like the Lions or Bills maybe winning one. That's never happened. It feels like we're heading towards something weird, something brand new, and that would be a whole lot of fun to see.
We're going to break down all the games that we saw on Sunday, as well as the game on Thursday Night Football as well, with tons of different PFF stats and data points, all that good stuff. If you want to follow along at home, best way to do that, getting a PFF Plus subscription at pff.com or subscribe.pff.com. You can go get yourself one of those subscriptions to see all the premium stats, but also so much more than that. You get the free agency tool, the fantasy football tool. So if you're in the fantasy football playoffs, you got to get those fantasy football tools now because those guys are going to have you on the path for a championship. When we get into draft season, you'll see all the great draft stuff as well. So if you don't have one, go get one. It's fantastic. But you gave us a little beautiful segue there into a team that is looking to three-peat here, and they only have one blemish this year. Somehow, some way, the Kansas City Chiefs, 12-1, once again get a win last night on Sunday Night Football. It's almost like they're just finding hilarious ways to win. And last night it was the doink off the bar in the field goal to end the game as time expired.
It's intentional at this point.
Is there black magic involved here?
I think it's intentional. It's completely intentional.
Powers beyond what we're seeing on the field?
No, they could be playing a lot better, and they just don't feel like it. They want to lull us all to sleep. They're playing possum. That's what I'm going with now.
You're saying that they're going to just become the Chiefs that we all think the Chiefs are once the playoffs start?
Yeah.
And all this messing around with the one-score games, you're saying that's going to be a thing of the past?
They're just taking it easy on us.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm starting to think that's what it is. I mean, you don't do things like intentionally hit the upright for it to go in. And,
intentionally?
Yeah, sure.
Now it's intentional.
Absolutely.
Like you're playing a 3-ball in hockey?
With a third-string kicker, no less.
That's
just messing with us.
It's just never done.
You can't make that stuff up.
Well, like we do for every single game, we're going to review the top 5 graded players for every single team, and we'll start with the Kansas City Chiefs for this one. So as we begin breaking down this game, the top 5 graded players for Kansas City, their top graded player is linebacker Leo Chenal, earned an 82.7 grade in this one. Cornerback Trent McDuffie, a couple of rough weeks there for Trent McDuffie, and good to see him bouncing back a little bit here, a 78.3. Tight end Noah Gray, number 3 on the list with a 76.0. Linebacker Drew Tranquil, a 71.9. Center Creed Humphrey with a 71.7, and then quarterback Patrick Mahomes in this one. Not his best day, but obviously a win is a win is a win. 66.2 grade for him. On the other side of things for the Los Angeles Chargers, tight end Stone Smart with a 93.4. Backup tight end really getting in there, playing well. Linebacker Diane Henley at 84.3. Edge rusher Khalil Mack at 82.8. Offensive tackle Rashawn Slater with an 81.9. Wide receiver Quentin Johnson stepping up a little bit in Ladd McConkey's absence with an 80.2. And then Justin Herbert an 89.9. The final score in this one, if I didn't say that at the top, 19-17. And that field goal obviously giving the Chiefs the victory as a buzzer beater. What's your stat that told the story here, Dalton? What do we got for this game?
So this Chiefs offense feels like at this point it's beyond explanation. And I guess I'm going to try to do my best to explain it. Now, every team wants an identity, and they have goals on offense, right? Some of them it's taking deep shots. Some of them it's getting in a certain run scheme and play action. It's explosive plays. He could be like the Eagles, and you just want to run somebody over. Simple as it sounds, all the Chiefs want to do on offense, no matter what the schemes are or who does it or whatever, they just want to get first downs. And it's so almost frustrating to watch because they get first downs, but they don't make any explosive plays happen at all. They know how to get exactly 10 yards in exactly 3 plays. Let me go like this. Last night, the Chiefs only had 2 plays all night where they gained at least 15 yards. 2.
It seems very un-Kansas City of them.
Not this year.
Right, from what we think about the Kansas City Chiefs.
But
yes,
they had 20 first downs. And this is a thing all season. They have the 4th fewest plays this season where they've gained 15 yards or more. And yet they have the 4th most first downs. That's all it is. That's why it's so frustrating, and it's their offense just encapsulates what they are as a team. They are just so you think you have them all the time because they don't do a whole lot, and they're not explosive at all. They just know how to get 4 yards on every single play, and on third downs, Mahomes knows how to bail them out because that's what he does. They are the ultimate bare minimum offense. And not in the sense of they're failing. They are just over the line, just over that bare minimum line.
Or you could call it methodical,
It's as methodical as you'll ever see.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
It is literally Andy Reid's goal is to just move the chain just enough.
It's funny.
There's no home runs. They are that team that hits singles all night long. And that's why it's so frustrating because you feel like, well, today they're going to lose because they're still not making explosive plays and there's no big plays and they're kicking field goals. They struggled in the red zone and in Chargers territory again in this game. The only touchdown they scored in this game was in a 2-minute drill, which kind of feels like the only time they score touchdowns because that's the only time they pick up the pace and they're trying to push things. And I get it. It's part of the identity of this team. Run the ball, interior offensive line, get first downs. But that's why it feels so frustrating. And that's why all these games are so close because that's all the goal is. Just keep getting first downs. And if you can't prevent us from getting first downs, we'll just keep running plays and milking the clock. It is as strange a combination as I've seen for a team that is 12-1.
Yeah, looking this up a little bit more, Patrick Mahomes on third down, 90.1 passing grade. That's, as you would expect, number one in the NFL. He also throws past the sticks 61.9% of the time, which is eighth most in the league. And I think that, sometimes we'll watch these teams. I remember this was a critique of Nathaniel Hackett. This was a critique of Adam Gase when he was the head coach or when he was an offensive coordinator even. It's as if, unfortunately, I know you know the Adam Gase part of it, where like even Le'Veon Bell is like, why are we calling a halfback draw on 2nd and 10 so you can just set up 3rd and 6? Like, what are we doing here? Are we trying to play football and score points, or are you trying to set yourself up in 3rd manageable? And it feels as though the Chiefs are one of those teams that's trying to set themselves up in 3rd and manageable. And we hate that. I think just as fans, because we're like, no. Like, you don't have to aim for 3rd and 5. You can aim for the first down, but they're going
almost
for 3rd manageable, and they're able to convert it.
They're almost the least aesthetically pleasing offense in the entire league, despite having Patrick Mahomes. Outside of 3 or 4 plays with the off-platform and jump throws and all of that. But for the most part, for 95% of the game, it's boring. It actually is boring. It's a boring offense that doesn't get over the top, that doesn't have a whole lot of speed. They haven't unlocked Xavier Worthy yet, and yet they just get the job done. It is really a bare minimum offense of we just get the job done 10 yards at a time. And usually it does take all 3 plays, and Mahomes completes something on 3rd and 4 because that's what he always does.
Yeah.
And that's where it's so frustrating because you feel like it's right there. How many teams this year? Almost all of them. We can beat them. And then you just barely don't. I mean, their offense really, to me, is symbolic of how they win ball games, and they're just comfortable like that. Did I see a stat? They've won like 15 one-score games in a row or something?
Yep.
That's mathematically, that's not even supposed to be.
No, it's not
Very possible at all.
They are completely breaking the math of like what you are supposed to expect for a team. You really are. And it's funny, they've only lost 1 game this year, and it's obviously to the Buffalo Bills. Just looking this up very quickly, the Bills have the 18th ranked defensive grade on 3rd down. So it's not like I wondered if I was going to look at the Bills and the Bills are like 3rd in the NFL or something on 3rd down defense, and they're not.
You know what would have happened. If Allen didn't have that touchdown run, the Chiefs would have gone down and found a way to win.
Well, I definitely want to get to Josh Allen. We're going to get to the Bills at some point in this game because, one, there was an unbelievable game between them and the Los Angeles Rams yesterday, but it was also we saw a side of Allen that I think we've sort of been waiting to see more of this year, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But sticking with this game, stat that told the story for me. I think the Chargers are a good football team. I do. I think their record, which they're now sitting at 8-5, I think it's a little bit overinflated, right, for like where exactly they are as a football team. I think that the middle of the season when Justin Herbert was playing about as good as anybody could play at the quarterback position, that gave them that extra win or two. I think probably more realistic for them to be, closer to a 6-7, 7-6 type of a record at this point in time. But their early down struggles in this game, I think, just put them in a hole too much. Chris Collinsworth talked about that on the broadcast. Negative 0.47 EPA per play on early downs in the first half. So 1st and 2nd down in the first half, 5 total completions in those situations for 13 passing yards, and then 5 attempts for 13 rushing yards, and then just 8 completions for 72 passing yards on early downs in the first half. Just wasn't necessarily good enough. And that kind of brings me into my most impressive was actually Quentin Johnston, because I think Quentin Johnston showed up well enough in this game. 7 targets, 5 catches, 48 yards, and a touchdown. He had 0 drops in this one. He was the highest graded wide receiver at a 78.9. So I want to give Quentin Johnston his flowers, but sort of tying this into my stat that told the story is that this offense, and going back to sort of what I was talking about with their record being a little bit overinflated, I think that they've been able to beat bad teams, and I think they've struggled against the better teams in the NFL. And going up against the Chiefs, where people could say, like, oh, it's frauds compared to what we think the Chiefs are, they're still a very, very good football team. And they were not able to move the ball well. And especially with Ladd McConkey not in this game, the early parts of the game, no J.K. Dobbins, no Ladd McConkey, they didn't really know what to do on first and second down, because if the runs on first down were not getting them in favorable situations, say like a 2nd and 5, something like that, if they were sitting back in 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9, 2nd and 10 situations, then they also didn't have Ladd McConkey to say, okay, now we've got to pass the ball on second down to get us into more third manageable or maybe get a first down. McConkey was often the guy to do that. So that was a big time. That stat of how they struggled on early downs in this game, especially in the first half, spoke to who was not out on the field and why, even though it took the Chiefs winning in some late game heroics, it felt like this was kind of like a Chiefs game to win because of that.
Well, they were down 13-0 at halftime on the road, and it's always going to be hard to win a game like that. That's why my most disappointing part is the Chargers' run game, because it's gone cold now. This is the 3rd straight game where they've had under 100 rushing yards, and we know Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, they want to run the football, they want to have balance, they don't want to lean on Justin Herbert like he's been leaned on in the previous years of his career, right? That was a problem where it felt like there was too many times under the previous regime where it was, hey, Justin, save us. Okay, do we have anything else? Like, is there maybe a play or two here and there where I don't have to? No, it's all yours. Like, that's what last night's second half felt like. 3.5 yards per design carry last night, 62.9 run blocking grade as a team. Only 2 explosive runs, and one of them was by Taylor Heineke when he came in for a play when Herbert was hurt. They're not getting enough out of the ground game right now. This is 3 games in a row where they haven't. They're getting by with their defense and with Herbert, because Herbert is amazing. He's still really good in this game, had 4 big-time throws in this game, but eventually, and we've seen it with several teams this season, you have to have balance to win football games. And we're seeing that over and over and over. We talk about so many teams with this. Philly, Washington, Arizona, Baltimore, Kansas City. The teams that are running the ball, that have balance in their offense, they're winning. And the Chargers for the last 3 weeks, they don't have balance. It's just Justin Herbert and Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston, whoever else steps up in the pass game.
I think philosophically they have balance. Right? Like when Dobbins has been running the ball well,
they want to have balance.
Right.
Sure.
They know how to do it.
Yeah.
They just don't necessarily have the players to be able to get it done. Maybe Kamani Vidal becomes that sort of a player like an RB2. Doesn't feel like that's going to be Gus Edwards for the long term. J.K. Dobbins obviously has been great this season. It'll be interesting to see what his role is with them moving forward. I believe he is a free agent. Is he a free agent this year?
Was it only a 1-year deal, I thought?
It was 1 or 2. Can't remember, but it's either a 1 or 2 year deal there with him. But my most disappointing, I kind of chatted about it already, I think it's just who wasn't out there for the Chargers that could have had them a little bit closer to what their regular identity would have been. What about you? Most impressive, because you just did most disappointing. So
I almost went with Herbert, but you know what? The more I thought about this and all this voodoo magic the Chiefs have, let's give credit to the kicker, Matthew Wright. First of all, for giving us a heart attack at the end, of course, just hitting the upright. I'm still sure it was intentional. But look, he's their 3rd kicker of the season. Harrison Butker is as much a part of this dynasty as Chris Jones and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, right? He's been there for all 3 trophies. 4 for 4 this week. He's hit 10 of his 11 kicks in 2 weeks with the Chiefs. This is high-pressure stuff. You think about it. The Chiefs, they're going for a 3-peat. That kick last night won the division. I'm going to give the kicker his credit, and he's got the game-winning kick in both games. And, for a team that's playing all these close-to-the-vest games, and they're barely winning by a field goal every week, going to be a lot of pressure on him going forward. If he, I don't know how long Harrison Butker will be out, if that's the whole season or how long that is. But if it's going to continue to be Matthew Wright and the Chiefs are on their 3rd kicker and he's still hitting these black magic kicks off the upright and they're going in, so be it. Nice job, dude, under pressure.
Yeah, no, it's cool, especially after a lot of the struggles that we have seen with kickers so far this season. Pretty cool to see a guy come in and be able to play well the way that he did. Let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings and the Atlanta Falcons next. Falcons come into Minnesota. Final score of this game, 42-21, but was it 21-21 going into the fourth quarter?
Sure
This
was.
is a close game going into the fourth quarter, and now you look at the score and it looks like a runaway. Not necessarily indicative of how close the game was for most of the contest. Top 5 graded players for the Minnesota Vikings. At the very top of the list, it is an incredible wide receiver duo that they have there. Jordan Addison with a 90.1, Justin Jefferson then with an 89.7, running back Aaron Jones with an 80.8 himself, and then cornerback Byron Murphy a 76.4, and cornerback Fabian Moreau with a 75.1. Sam Darnold in this game, 90.9 PFF grade. On Atlanta's side of things, guard Chris Lidstrom, 89.8. Center Drew Dahlman with an 84.5. Offensive tackle Caleb McGarry, an 81.0. Wide receiver Darnell Mooney, a 79.7. And the number 5, rounding it out, offensive tackle Jake Matthews with a 77.8. Kirk Cousins in this one, some good, some bad, some big-time throws, some turnover-worthy plays. 76.6 overall grade is what he had at the end of the day. Stat that told the story here, Dalton.
Real quick on those Falcons grades. I was mad when I saw them when I was filling them out because I'm kind of peeved with Darnell Mooney. The next person behind those 5 on that list is their left guard Matt Bergeron. We were this close
to having all 5.
To having all 5 offensive linemen as their top 5 guys. And I saw that he was the next one, and I got kind of annoyed. I was like, man, I kind of wanted to see that. We need a game at some point here where all 5
Just
offensive
all
linemen are the top 5.
That's America's team.
That would be awesome.
America's team.
It is. All right. Sam Darnold. This is the story today, isn't it? Trevor, you a blues guy?
Like music?
Yeah.
Yes. I was wondering either you went music or St. Louis blues.
No, I know you're a Lightning fan. We know that.
Yeah.
Actually,
I like blues music. Yeah.
It's great.
I can't say like I listen to a ton of it, but when I hear blues music, I enjoy it.
Oh, I do. It's great. Okay.
You seem like somebody who would enjoy it.
Of course. They call me the old man of the bunch around here.
They do.
Don't they? Okay. Yeah. So, from Tampa, actually, I was
shout out.
When I'm walking over here, I usually listen to music on the walk here. Okay. And today, Tampa blues artist, Selwyn Birchwood. Okay. You ever heard of him?
I have not.
If you go down to Tampa, go see him. He's fantastic.
Okay.
He's got a song called Exorcist. All right?
All right.
It's about getting rid of exorcising your demons, and you need an exorcism, and it's like you have to just clean yourself of all that stuff, right? Remember Sam Darnold seeing ghosts in New York?
Oh, yes.
Tell you what, when he went out to San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan was not his coach. He was not his mentor. He was not anything like that. He was the exorcist. That's what he was. And Sam Darnold doesn't see ghosts anymore. They're gone. That's what I'm going with. They're gone. The demons are gone. The demons of New York and Carolina. Kyle Shanahan cleansed him of them. He shipped them off to Kevin O'Connell. And now we have a cleansed, spiritually free Sam Darnold. And I have numbers to prove it, and here's what I mean. Under pressure in this game, 5 for 8, 173 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 big-time throws. Since week 7, 85.5 passing grade under pressure, best in the league. For the season, 71.6, second in the NFL. No more ghosts. And the Falcons, the best part about this game, if you watch this game in sequence again, they got pressure on him early. You mentioned it. The Falcons' defensive line, for once, played well in this game. They got an early pass rush.
Yeah,
and that used to be a thing. If you got pressure on Darnold early in a game, he was going to start shaking in the pocket. Doesn't do it anymore. Doesn't happen. He keeps punching back. If he gets hit, if he gets sacked, he got sacked twice in a row on one drive early in this game. He gets sacked, he misses a throw, something bad happens, something adverse, he just comes right back. And he's got no pulse now. And he's still only, 27 years old? Now he's got this grizzled veteran thing where he's not bothered by things like that, by a mistake, by pressure, by simulated pressure, by people blitzing or not blitzing, none of it. He goes out there and he executes. He's incredible. At this point, he's got the 6th best passing grade in the league right now.
Yeah.
And that's well-deserved.
Second highest big-time throw rate of any quarterback.
We have to sit here and question whether he's actually the answer here.
What do you mean? Like if he...
Long-term in Minnesota.
Yeah, my stat that told the story, obviously, in a game that was close going into the fourth quarter and then looked like a dominant blowout win for the Minnesota Vikings, how can it not be the Vikings' offensive efficiency that tells the story of this game? 4 for 4 in the red zone for everybody at home. It's 100%. 8 for 12 on third down, 67%. That's pretty damn good. 0.437 EPA per play, the highest EPA per play of any offense this week. Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, a perfect wide receiver rating when thrown to. Like, not only is it obviously Sam Darnold, but we saw Aaron Jones on that list as the top 5 graded players. Obviously, the wide receivers are on it. The way that Kevin O'Connell has this offense running, it's a masterpiece right now. It truly is. And I get it. Like, the Falcons aren't the best defense in the NFL, but holy cow, were they able to turn it on in a massive way. Sam Darnold, 4 big-time throws in this game, 0 turnover-worthy plays. And I agree with you. They have J.J. McCarthy, obviously, who they drafted in the first round, and they sort of take a flyer on Sam Darnold, right? It's one of those deals where I loved it at the time. It's like, hey, we'll give you this deal. You're going to be our starting quarterback this year. We think we're going to give you a legitimate shot to be our starting quarterback. This is not I'm sure that this is the conversation that they had with him. Hey, we'd love to sign you. We would love to put you in a great position to succeed. We're going to draft a rookie quarterback in the first round this year, but we don't want to have to play them right away. What we'd love to have you do is at least start the first 6 weeks of the season, and we're going to put you in the best position possible to give you an audition to be for another team after this. And then we're obviously, and then we'll if you keep playing well, that doesn't mean we're necessarily going to give you the hook after 6 weeks, but we'll give you at least 6 weeks to put your best foot forward. And Sam's like, okay, I'll take it. And he's taken it an absolute run with it to the point where we now have to have the conversations of you're gonna let this guy walk. This guy's got the number one big time. You mentioned all the play under pressure, which is fantastic. This guy's got the number 2 big time throw percentage in the NFL behind only Anthony Richardson. And Anthony Richardson, we know, is a lot more like do or die than Sam Darnold is. Sam Darnold is so damn consistent, and he's got a very high big time throw percentage. So, look, I think J.J. McCarthy can be a good quarterback in this league. I don't know how you let this guy walk out of the door.
I don't think so.
I don't think you can at this point.
And it's not.
They're 11-2, Dalton.
I know.
If it weren't for the Detroit Lions, we'd be talking about them right there with the Philadelphia Eagles of who's the best team in the NFC, who's got the best chance to make it to the Super Bowl. And we still kind of do, right? We still have to talk about that team that way when you talk about how efficient their offense is and how good their defense is playing. I think everybody feels like it's almost like a foregone conclusion the Lions are going to make it, but it's not. It's absolutely not. All the Vikings have to do is if they get matched up against the Lions, whether it's in the conference championship round, divisional round, wherever it's going to be, you just got to beat them once. You don't got to beat them 10 times.
And they played them to the wire already.
Right, you just got to beat them once. They can absolutely beat the Detroit Lions once. They could absolutely beat the Philadelphia Eagles once. And the reason why is because of a culmination of a lot of things, but the biggest piece of the puzzle is Sam Darnold. How do you let that player walk out of the door? You don't. So that's sort of where I'm at with the Minnesota Vikings as well.
It needs to be said, too, because we've seen, obviously, one-year wonders. We saw, I think, back to Ryan Fitzpatrick with the Jets or Daniel Jones with the Giants a couple years ago or something like. No, he's outperforming any of that. He's even outperforming what Baker Mayfield did last year.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
It's incredible. And Baker made, 3 years and 100 off of that?
Basically.
I mean, if you got that for Darnold for what he's done this year, that might be a bargain. This is not the same as...
he's not signing the Baker Mayfield deal
That's
anymore.
the first question everybody's going to ask.
Yeah.
Is this Daniel Jones? And I will say no. Daniel Jones had a 70 passing grade that year with 8 big-time throws and 21 turnover-worthy plays. He had one great game in the playoffs against Minnesota, and that was about it.
Daniel Jones was, even though there's always a risk, right, Sam Darnold could come out next year and look bad. I'm not saying that that's impossible.
He could, but the peripherals say, Sam Darnold, this is real. Not like Jones. The peripherals said Daniel Jones.
Or at least it's a lot more solid than what Daniel Jones gave you the year that the Giants gave him the extension.
Right.
Yes.
This the way he's throwing the ball, the way his composure, his ability to process. Even now, he's getting to his second and third reads. He's looking off safeties. He's doing so many things that the veteran quarterbacks do. Right. And this is his first full year starting in a long time. And I think that needs to be said too. He's still only 27. This is not some 35-year-old guy having some magical resurgence like Ryan Fitzpatrick with the Jets or whatever. This is a 27-year-old kid in the right situation with the right coach and fantastic play calling who seems to have found it. I mean, there's late breakouts and things like that, and he was so young when he came into the league with the Jets, and we know how the Jets develop quarterbacks. I think it's a completely different situation. I think you have to think about it if he's going to continue to play this well. This is insane.
And it's not a great quarterback class either, right? So you don't necessarily have that sort of to fight against things. Not that they would have drafted a quarterback, but to say there are going to be other teams that are going to be gunning heavy for Darnold.
Absolutely.
So bringing it in the conversation of if you're going to sign him again, it's going to be a lot more than the Baker Mayfield deal. But again, if you think you found your answer at quarterback, you take it.
Yeah. Because at this point now, you've got, at least now we're 13 games in, you have a known commodity. J.J. McCarthy is a completely unknown commodity coming from a low-volume passing school and off of a season-ending knee injury before it even started.
And again, they already have the roster, right?
They have a win-now roster.
They've already paid Justin Jefferson, right? Like, you had the free agents that you brought in last year. Now, obviously, things are going to change, but I think the Vikings have they've got like the 6th or 7th most effective cap space in the NFL next year. They can sign Sam Darnold. And at that point, it becomes the Family Guy meme, right? When you talk about J.J. McCarthy. Yeah, a boat's a boat, but the mystery box could be anything. It could even be a boat, right? And like that's the analogy that we're talking about here. And if that's the case, you'd probably rather just give Sam Darnold the money.
One of my favorite ones too. I always love that.
I always think about that analogy, even still to this day. But anyways, so the Vikings, fantastic. Most impressive, I think. Actually, you go with your most impressive because then I'll give mine.
It helps to have elite weapons, and that's what Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison are. When you talk about Jefferson with $132 and Addison with $133, Addison 3 touchdowns, Jefferson 2, both of them with receiving grades above 88. And I know, again, then people are going to go, well, Sam Darnold's propped up by his weapons. Okay. He's still getting them the football. Like, Judd Burrow has Chase and Higgins, and Allen used to have Stephon Diggs, and everybody, Joe Montana had Jerry Rice. Cool, he's propped up by his weapons. This entire offense is executing, but when you have 2 elite receivers like this, and Jordan Addison, to me, from what we've seen this year, he's moving into that category. He's getting into that top 15-ish receiver category. He's just incredible, especially what he did yesterday. And most disappointing just goes right on the other side of it. The Falcons' secondary is just falling apart now. And it's unfortunate because this is the 1 week. Actually, last week, too. They had 5 sacks last week. They finally are getting a pass rush after being second to last in pass rush grade most of the year. And now the secondary's imploded. And they had a 38.3 coverage grade and 9 explosive plays allowed in this game. That entire matchup defines what this game was, which is the Vikings with everything they have and as well as they're playing, just shredding the back end of this Falcons defense.
I'm going to give credit to the front of that Falcons defense, though, because over the last couple of weeks, they're playing pretty dang well. We've talked about how pass rushing for the Falcons has been the Achilles heel for them for a long, long time. 75.5 team pass rushing grade this past week, 4 sacks, 18 pressures, 54.3 pass rush win percentage as a team. That was the second best single game output this season for every single number in all those categories. Sacks, pressures, win percentage, all of that. It was the second most efficient day that they've had on the blitz as well this season. They have been much better at the blitz. Simulated pressures are up over the last couple of weeks. Less secondary blitzes as well, so they're blitzing just more from the box defenders than necessarily the safeties or the slot corners or cornerback blitzes, anything like that. Arlen Ebiketie, Matt Judon, Caden Ellis, those guys really showed up yesterday and were able to play very well. So for the Falcons defensive line, them coming alive here in the second half of the season is very, very nice to see because you're at least hoping that even if you don't make the playoffs, which they certainly still could, the Buccaneers now take a lead, but they own the tiebreaker over the Bucs, so it's still right there. You at least want to go into next season hoping that you don't have to replace like 5 different spots on the defense because nobody can really get after the passer. That's what you're really hoping for at this point, so it's good to see them move in the right direction. Most disappointing for me continues to be Kirk Cousins. 2 turnover-worthy plays, 2 interceptions in this game. He had 2 big-time throws as well. I don't want to take that away from him. But, even if the Falcons were to win that division, I'm picking whoever they're playing.
Yes, and I think so, with Cousins...
It almost feels as though the Falcons are just trying to get to the end of the year and stay competitive to where they can go, man, we gave Cousins a full year, but we think Michael Penix is the right guy moving forward.
I don't doubt that they're trying to win the division. That was the whole point of getting.
No, I don't think they're actively sabotaging the team. But
here's where we've gotten to.
He's holding them back in a lot.
Yes, here's where we've gotten to. They're playing the Raiders next week. The worst.
Oh yeah, they have a pretty soft schedule moving forward.
Right.
Yeah.
If for some reason they were to lose next week, and a part of it is him turning the ball over, that'll be his last start of the year. That's the team. They have by far the worst coverage grade. That's the worst secondary in the league right now, the Raiders.
They're bad.
If he can't be productive, and for some reason in what just became a Desmond Ridder revenge game, if they go and lose to the Raiders next week, I think he'll be out of the starting role next week. After if they were to lose that's a must win because the Bucs have all the momentum, and especially if you're 2 games behind with 3 to go, even with the tiebreaker, I think at that point, you just coming off a loss to the Raiders, you would have to mix it up just to do it. You'd have to give Penix a shot. I think next week they have to come out and play well, or there's going to be massive changes.
I would agree with you. Did you do most disappointing?
Yeah, Falcons secondary.
Falcons
just
secondary,
the back end of that. Just not an easy assignment, but that's a rough day, especially in the fourth quarter.
Browns at Steelers. Steelers come away victorious, as they have a lot this season, 27-14. Top 5 graded Pittsburgh Steelers here in this game. Running back Jalen Warren's at the very top of the list with an 86.3 defensive tackle. Keanu Benton starts the run of box defenders here for the Steelers. 85.6 grade for Benton. Edge rusher Alex Highsmith with an 84.6. Now that Highsmith is back in the lineup, it just feels like it's either him or Nick Herbig that's just absolutely going off every single week. Linebacker Patrick Queen with an 82.6. Linebacker Landon Roberts with a 79.6. And then quarterback Russell Wilson, 77.2. On Cleveland's side of things, edge rusher Isaiah McGuire, an 83.7. Jordan Hicks with a 90.0. Actually, that should be reversed. He should be number 1. But number 3, Devin Bush, an 87.3. Edge rusher Myles Garrett, an 86.3. Running back Jerome Ford, a 69.1. Jameis Winston in this game, 58.2. No pick sixes, though. Right?
Well, that's good.
Right? There weren't any. Keanu Benton didn't pick six it.
No, he didn't pick six.
He'll
get a touchdown one day, I believe. What a great player he is.
Stats to tell the story for you. What do you got?
Well, no pick sixes, but the Browns showed you also why they are 3-10. Yes, they beat the Steelers. The first time when they beat the Steelers a couple weeks ago, they showed you why in a one-game scenario any team is dangerous. The second time around, they showed you why they're 3-10. The mistakes, and the Steelers took advantage of all of them. There was early in the game a sack and a short punt and a punt return that put the Steelers deep in Browns territory. That was a field goal for Pittsburgh. Jameis interception leads to a touchdown. 2 Dustin Hopkins misses from 38 and 43 makeable kicks. Both of them in a row. They had a back-to-back opportunity wrapped around halftime. He misses both field goals. Instead of 13-13, the game's still 13-7. Steelers score a touchdown. And then the Browns have a 4th down try at their own 45-yard line. Didn't get it. Ran to the outside. Didn't get it. Landon Roberts made a great play on it. Steelers score a touchdown there. It was just, this was the one where the losing team makes the mistakes and the better team takes advantage of those mistakes. And you turn all of that into 20 points. And that's all they needed, and the Steelers ended up with 27 in this game. That's where you're at. When you're playing a team like the Steelers, whose defense gives them a lot of margin for error, you don't have much. And the Browns made too many mistakes throughout this game that turned into Steeler points.
Would you believe that Dustin Hopkins has missed more field goals than Justin Tucker this season?
I would believe that because he's my most disappointing guy in this game. This game has
13 missed field goals this year. He's got a 62% field goal percentage.
He's most misses in the NFL. Dead last in field goal grade for us among kickers. He's missing.
He's got a 28.4 field goal grade.
Yeah, he's missing short. And again, this game, it was 2 field goals wrapped around halftime when the Browns had a back-to-back. Right? They had the opportunity that every team wants. And if this game early in the third quarter is 13-13, it has a lot different feel to it. We start getting into territory where, it's late and the Browns are still in this and Jameis, but you just can't have it. And they're makeable kicks. It's not like he's missing 60s. These are from 38 and 43. We saw him miss, a 27-yarder against the Saints, something like that. I mean, I know certain kickers have off years. You mentioned Justin Tucker, but this was kind of a difference in the game. When you have 2 good drives back-to-back, each at the end of the first and the beginning of the second half, and you come away with nothing, that's deflating, especially when the Steelers then take advantage and go right down the field for a touchdown the very next drive. You go from 13-13 where it should have been to 20-7, and on that defense, you're not getting down 13 and coming back.
Kicking is just such a fascinating and frustrating part of this game because it's just guys who have all the talent in the world just miss.
And then Matthew Wright gets the Chiefs magic and
everything's
fine. He can hit the upright and it goes right in.
Of course,
to win the division.
Stat that told the story for me is the Browns' offensive line, Jameis Winston, how he dealt with pressure in this game. Jameis pressured 19 times, which is 3rd most in the NFL this week, 48.5 passing grade under pressure. He had 1 big-time throw, but also a turnover-worthy play, and 3 sacks when he was pressured in this game. Joel Bitonio was the only Browns offensive lineman with a passing grade above 61.0. Every offensive lineman in this game gave up at least 1 pressure, and I feel like that's just the overall story of what we talked about with the Browns. I remember first 6-7 weeks of the season, I just continued to hammer like, okay, well, who's the most disappointing on this Browns team? It's the offensive line. And they were going through injuries. They had some guys in and out of the lineup. Jedrick Wills is coming back from injury, and obviously, like, he hasn't been great even when he's been healthy out there. But like Wyatt Teller's missed some time, Ethan Postic's missed some time, Jack Conklin missed some time, and so they haven't really had a ton of time just together as a group. But even with most of them, 4 out of the 5 that have been out there, they've still struggled. And with Bill Callahan, who was their offensive line coach for a couple of years, one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL. He goes from the Cleveland Browns to the Tennessee Titans when his son got hired as the head coach. Brian Callahan now with Tennessee. There's been a noticeable drop-off in how that offensive line has played, without him as the offensive line coach. So that continues to be a stat that tells the story, because even though Jameis is a player who can make magic happen for you when he is pressured, he is also, as we know, heavily volatile. And so anytime that's the case, you're going to get, a lot of times with him, it's just a lot of good and a lot of bad, and that's a tough recipe when you go up against a Pittsburgh Steelers team that is so secure and confident in their identity. They know how to play the football game the right way, and obviously when you're not great up front in the offensive line, well, there's no worse defensive line to go up against than the Pittsburgh Steelers.
The hardest team to block in football.
100%. And which brings me to my most impressive in this one. It is the Steelers' defensive line, because it was more than just pressures, which you had guys who got pressures. Cam Hayward got 2 sacks in this game. Highsmith got 6 pressures, 35% passers win percentage, 86.5 passers and grade. But like Keanu Benton as well, coming off the block, reading a screen perfectly, getting his hands up, getting an interception. Like, it's just the 2 weeks before this, Nick Herbig sort of as this specialized pass rusher, elite pass rush grades in each of the last 2 weeks before this one. So it's the Steelers just hit, and that's obviously without even mentioning the name of TJ Watt, who's talented enough to be a defensive player of the year for you. So this is, without question, the best defensive line in the NFL. And if you are not on your P's and Q's on the offensive line, it's just going to be a rough day, and it was obviously a rough day for Cleveland.
And look, you mentioned Highsmith too. First game back from injury. He's been out for a while.
Right.
And he comes in and he's just, oh, yeah, I'm great too. Here we go. I mean, it's ridiculous. No, they are a massive problem, especially if you think about, say, with the Chiefs with their offensive tackle issues, or the Texans with their interior issues. I mean, it's a defensive line that can disrupt any game they play, and they can take it over. And again, against a team like this, and it's shocking enough that the Browns won the first time, Jameis made enough plays with Jerry Jeudy, but on a consistent week-to-week basis, this is one of the best units of any position unit in football.
Most impressive, most disappointing. Dealer's choice. Where do you want to start?
Disappointing was Hopkins.
Oh, yeah,
I
you
went
said
on
Hopkins,
that rant.
very disappointing.
You know what? I'm taking Russell Wilson. And I'm going the opposite of where you did with Jameis under pressure. The Steelers didn't, the Browns are a tough team to block too. Let's start there. Myles Garrett and the guys up front that they have, right? Pretty good. If your offensive line can't protect you, and the Steelers have had injuries and struggles at tackle, you got Dan Moore Jr. going against Myles Garrett, you've got Broderick Jones struggling on the other side, you got two rookies playing on the inside. If you're a quarterback and you're an offensive coordinator, if your line can't protect you, then you protect yourself. Russell Wilson, 2.44 second average time to throw this season. By far his lowest of the season. His next closest is like 2.75 or something. They came into this game with a clear plan of, Russ, you got to protect yourself. I believe he was sacked 4 times in the first matchup 2 weeks ago, and in this one once. Throws under 2.5 seconds, all right? 12 of 17, 124, 3 big-time throws under 2.5 seconds. So still working the ball down the field. And this is without George Pickens, too. Mike Williams had a couple big catches. Wilson making big throws down the field in a decisive manner, along with all of the screens and some different design things that Arthur Smith came in with. That this was a terrific game plan. Actually, I should credit Arthur Smith as well. It was a great game plan. One team was able to work around an elite pass rush because they knew they couldn't protect him, and the other one couldn't. Russell Wilson this year on throws under 2.5 seconds, 87.3 passing grade, second best in the NFL. It's the difference between him and Fields, right? Fields gives you the legs, and in a game like this, he would probably hold the football and run around and try to scramble around the D-line. Russell Wilson knows where to go as the veteran, as a guy who's won a Super Bowl and been to another and been through all the postseason, all the experience, right? Get rid of the football, process the defense quickly, and if nothing else, then just throw it away. That's fine. We'll live to fight another day, but we just can't take 4, 5, 6 sacks against this D-line. You have to protect yourself, and that's what he did in this game.
It's pretty incredible what Russell Wilson has done to get to this point. Thinking of the last year that he was with Seattle, how much of a struggle that kind of was. It wasn't terrible, but it it wasn't great. It was not the Russell Wilson that we thought about when this team was making playoff runs every single year. Then he gets traded to Denver, new spot. Okay, first year it's with Nathaniel Hackett, and holy cow, that was a disaster. Then it was Sean Payton, but I don't think Sean Payton ever wanted Russell Wilson. I think he took the job very clearly with ownership and the general manager, and Sean Payton was basically like, that's not my quarterback.
And he didn't play that poorly, though.
No, he was fine. He was certainly
he
better.
wasn't terrible last year.
No, he was better with Sean Payton. There's no doubt about it. But it was nothing like what we had thought of with Russell Wilson, even like a couple of years prior. So they were moving on from him made sense from Denver. And then, he goes to Pittsburgh, and it's almost like, man, is this it for him? Like, it's just kind of a year where it's going to be him and Fields kind of in and out of the lineup. And I wondered if that would be the case. He looks awesome. Russell Wilson looks good enough to where, like, damn right you give this guy a contract extension, right? Unless you think you're getting Sam Darnold or something. Like, you could run it back with both these quarterbacks.
Give him 2 more years, sure.
If Fields would come back in this situation. Now, maybe Fields wants to go to a situation where he thinks he's going to have a better chance of being a starter. That makes a lot of sense. But if I'm Pittsburgh, I'm running this exact duo back. 100%. And it's going to cost you more money now to do it, but they're playing well enough to where that's the case. Most disappointing for me in this game, Browns on third down, 2 for 13. Yikes. 15%, it's not going to get it done, ever. So that was my most disappointing there to wrap things up. Philadelphia Eagles and the Carolina Panthers. The spread in this game was 13.5. Panthers were getting 13.5. Disrespectful. Did they not watch the PFF show last week? Bryce Young.
They haven't watched Bryce Young for the last month.
Bryce Young, most big-time throws in the NFL in the 2 weeks prior going into this. 13.5, come on, it's disrespectful. 22-16 is the final score. The Eagles do win this game, as we thought that they were going to, but obviously closer than what a lot of people thought that it was going to be. When you look at the top 5 graded players for the Philadelphia Eagles, Mekhi Becton at the very top of the list with an 88.2. Safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson with an 82.8. Lane Johnson, 81.2. Guard Landon Dickerson, an 81.1. And then linebacker Zach Baum with an 80.0. Jalen Hurts in this one, a 72.2 overall grade. On the other side of things for Carolina, wide receiver Adam Thielen with an 88.2. Offensive tackle Taylor Moton with a 79.2. Guard Robert Hunt, a 76.4. Offensive tackle Ike Ekwonu with a 71.9. Guard Damian Lewis, 69.1. And then Bryce Young in this game, a 63.4. Stat told the story, Dalton.
Okay, so there was obviously a lot of post-game noise about the passing game and some things A.J. Brown said after the game and where we're at with this Eagles passing game. And I think we need to go kind of broad on the scope here with the Eagles. Yes, it was a tight game. Bryce Young darn near beat him. You were maybe a drop away from actually losing this game. But let's talk about Jalen Hurts. All right, 63.1 passing grade in this game. Only completed 2 passes beyond 10 air yards. All right,
lowest average depth of target of the season for him.
Lowest average depth of target. I want to get into something too, because when you have such a heavy running team, the best thing you can do is mix things up on first down. Okay, when everybody thinks the run is coming, right? Mm-hmm. In this game on first down, a 1.5 yard average depth of target.
So they did pass, but they passed as an extension of the run game.
Only the RPOs and stuff, right? And I also don't find it a coincidence that all of a sudden the passing game struggles even more when Dallas Goedert goes on IR. Because there's a lot of things in the middle of the field and even in the RPO game, the way they run it, where Dallas Goedert's a really important part. And there's been times in the past where he's not on the field. Even though we know Brown and Smith are 1-2 on the outside, Goddard's a key piece for them schematically when it comes to balancing this sort of thing out. But either way, you have to find a way to survive. You can't look like this. The weird thing in the NFC for me, in a broad scope, is that the 2 best teams, obviously Detroit and Philly, are teams that look better the more that they hide their quarterback. We've seen this. The Eagles, since their bye week, since week 5 now, they run it somewhere between 57 and 59% of the time. An increase over their first 4 games that hovered around 40%, right around the league average. These are 2 teams that look better with the offensive line going, with the run game going, with some play action going, maybe an occasional shot, but not a whole lot. I just have to wonder, with both of them, we can get into Detroit's conversation later, but with Philly, there's always a moment in the postseason when your quarterback has to carry you through it.
Yep.
Can Jalen do it? I know we saw him do it in the Super Bowl, and they wound up losing even though he played the game of his life. Mm-hmm. But we haven't seen it the last 2 years.
I think he's capable. We don't see it a lot.
We don't see it. We
don't see it a lot, and that
we really haven't seen it at all this year.
That makes, and to be fair to them, Because what are they now? 11-2
Yeah.
on the season? Like, to be fair, what they're doing is very clearly working. They're running the offense through Saquon Barkley. They're letting Jalen Hurts sort of be an extension of the run game. He is an easy conversion on 3rd and short, 4th and short, and he's been completing a lot of deep passes to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But there's not a lot of in-between, and I think that's what makes everybody nervous.
What is their pass? I need to know, what is their passing game outside of
three-pointers,
outside of RPO, and outside of
three-pointers,
outside of press man go balls?
That's it. No, that's it. But I hear that makes me nervous. But they're 11-2.
You have a team with this type of weaponry.
Yes,
that's running their offense the same way as Pittsburgh. That has nowhere near as close.
It's true, but they're just doing it a lot better.
Not through the air. They're not.
Not this.
Who looks better? Who looks better right now? Russ or Hurts?
Well, in deep ball, Russ looks better.
Even in this game. I mean, you're playing Carolina. There's no. I mean, I'm just saying.
No, this was obviously not a good game for Hurts.
I'm curious. The NFC is going to get weird because I think the two quarterbacks playing the best and that I should say the quarterbacks that are playing the best in the NFC and being asked to do the most are Matt Stafford and Sam Darnold, and a little streaky, but guys like Baker Mayfield or Jaden Daniels, right? The Lions and Eagles look better when they hide their quarterbacks a bit. And I think it might even be more extreme at the moment with the Eagles. And I'd be worried about that. And I know they've got a very safe formula that's going to beat most teams with a dynamite offensive line and the best running back in football right now and maybe the best defense in football right now, front to back. But eventually your quarterback has to be, at least for 1 or 2 games in the postseason, that guy. It's always the case. It's why the Niners couldn't win one so far with Jimmy G or with Brock Purdy. You need that. Even if it's 1 or 2 drives or a quarter, you're going to need that. And they need more out of this passing game than they got in this game.
I don't doubt you. I don't discredit what you're saying. I'm trying to think of teams in the NFC that are legitimate, like 2 high safety main teams that can win enough up front to be good to slow Saquon Barkley down as well as cap off a lot of their deep passes. I think Detroit's one of them.
The Rams are going to try, but we saw them get run over once.
Right,
already.
But I don't have a ton of faith in them. Green Bay has the safeties to do it, but
is it more about getting ahead of them early? If you're the Rams against the Eagles, take the ball first, get ahead, and make Hurts beat.
Yeah, no, look, so that's why like I'm looking at teams that I'm wondering who would be really tough matchups and ones to, because I think Philadelphia's setup is. There's nothing foolproof in this league, but it's essentially foolproof against bad teams. Like Philly's floor is so high, they're just not going to lose to bad teams. The teams that I think could give them fits are specifically Green Bay and Detroit. Like I think that Green Bay, the way that Jordan Love has played this year since coming back and really being fully healthy. I know they played Green Bay earlier in the season, but Jordan Love gets hurt in that game. I think Green Bay and Detroit are the 2 offenses that I look at where last week I highlighted how good Green Bay was coming out of the gate. And the Packers and the Lions, 2 of the best offenses in the NFL at scoring in the first half. Both of those teams average more than 16 points a game in the first half, or at least they had when I looked at the stat 2 weeks ago.
There are 2 other guys I worry about. One is Brian Flores in Minnesota.
So Minnesota, I didn't know how hot they come out of the gate, but I think that doesn't Kevin O'Connell score a ton on opening drives?
They're a very good first half team.
So so I guess the 3 teams in the NFC North worry me with Philly.
And the other one,
what's the other one?
In the same vein of Brian Flores and blitzing a lot and giving you a lot of weird stuff, it's the team that has their number. It's Tampa. I know. Look, Tampa's not supposed to be better than Philly, but the last 2 times they've played them, Todd Bowles is given Jalen Hurts absolute fits.
No, Bowles knows Hurts pretty well. He does.
This is the problem. And for as much as we've talked about the Bucs not being great in coverage and all that, when Philly sees him and he gets to the 0 blitzes and all the weird stuff against Jalen, they don't have a whole lot of answers. So if the Bucs, because you mentioned it, what is it you said about Todd Bowles one time? He will go out of his way more than anything to be the best run defense in the league, right?
Yeah, John Ledger was saying that to me one time. He's like, if Bowles was the number 1 run defense in the league and the number 32 pass defense, he might take it. Because of how much he likes to do
against Philadelphia, you would take it.
So
I think there are threats. If
I think
they
the
can't
NFC
figure
North,
this out, there are many threats.
I think the 3 teams in the NFC North are legitimate threats for Philadelphia. I think that if Philly has to go on a gauntlet where, let's say they don't get the number 1 seed, let's say they have to play wild card weekend, if they have to host against the Packers, and then the next week they have to host against the Vikings, and then the next week they have to go to Detroit. Let's say Detroit gets the 1 seed.
It's rough.
I don't think they make it out of those 3 games. But if they play the Bucs in there, I think that's a wild card, kind of a coin flip thing. But I think the Eagles, I would take the Eagles over any of the teams in the NFC West, including one that would make the wild card.
I think the Rams are the most.
I would take them over the Falcons. And I would take Philly over Washington.
Yeah, I'm in on that.
But the 3 NFC North teams do worry me because of how quickly they could score. And again, yeah. I agree. You could sort of put them in a situation where the script is not advantageous to you.
Yeah, and I just think if they don't get more out of it, it's hard to just go all the way through just running the ball. It's going to be tough.
All right, well, that was a fun little tangent of a conversation.
Anyway,
I actually enjoyed that. Eagles run game, that's the stat that told the story because,
Always
again,
is.
The floor of this team is so high. They did not play very well, but they still have Saquon Barkley. And it's like, you could look at this team, and it was funny. And Jordan Mailata was talking about how the team wasn't playing well after the game. A.J. Brown looked very pissed after the game. And it's like, y'all realize you won, right? It was kind of a little reminiscent of last year when the Eagles were 10-2, yet the vibes were horrendous for that team. Now, again, I don't think we're in the same place, but it's different when you have Saquon Barkley and when you go, okay, well, a bad day for us is still better than most teams in the NFL because we've got this guy. So Saquon needs, I think, over 120 yards per game over the next 4 weeks to break Eric Dickerson's record. That's a lot. That's a lot. I don't know if he's going to do it.
Next week's the big one.
Would love to see it. It'd be cool if we saw it. But most impressive for me, I'm going to go back to the linebackers for Philadelphia as well. Nakobe Dean didn't have as great a game. Nakobe Dean, 61.7 overall grade. But Zach Bond, just fantastic. 11 tackles in this game, 80.1 overall grade. And just think that duo is fantastic in the middle of that defense. And then I'll sort of wrap it up here by saying Xavier Legette is my most disappointing player in this game. 2 catches on 8 targets for 39 yards. He had that huge drop on the end that could have been a touchdown that won the game. I mean, dude, you get picked to catch that football. Like, you are picked to catch that football specifically, and that's a tough drop for him, especially when we saw him come up with big, leaping, spectacular catches when he was at South Carolina. 52.2 receiving grade in this game. But what about you? Most impressive, most disappointing?
I'll continue on with Legette there for you because I'm with you, and I think it might be a little bit in his head right now. It's been a frustrating watch with him because I do think he's really talented. I think he was the right pick, and they needed a guy who can get vertical, and I think it's just inconsistent with the separation, and he's had a drop in 4 straight games. So I think it might be a little bit in his head right now of like, you just relax, and he looks like a rookie who's going through it. It sucks to have that moment, obviously, that could have been a game winner, but you got to battle through it. Now you find out who he is. Most impressive, I'll tell you what, Mekhi Becton at right guard. You mentioned the run game and the offensive line. Just a people mover. I'll tell you what, all the scouting reports coming out of Louisville when the Jets drafted him, they were all correct. This is a massive people mover in the run game who is capable enough as a pass protector, and apparently he just needed to play guard. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You watch him, 9 positive run blocks in one game is terrific. Only 1 pressure allowed as a pass protector, 85.5 run blocking grade. I mean, you watch his tape. He might be one of the first offensive linemen this year where I've watched the tape from the sideline angle because I just want to see how far downfield he's mauling people. I'm talking 5, 7, 8 yards downfield. He's still on them, and he's getting pancakes. I mean, Becton on the inside, again, with Jason Kelce retiring and they had to move Cam Jurgens over, all of a sudden the biggest hole was at right guard. No hole with that guy there. He's been one of the best guards in football, and he just fits everything this team wants to do. They have unlocked all of his talent, especially in the run game. He's a weapon.
User named iCommentForAlgorithm on the YouTube chat, which
Perfect.
We love to see, pointed out some of the games that we actually have next week. Eagles-Steelers is one of those games, so we actually get to see that game. Bills-Lions is another one. Seahawks play the Packers, right? So we get a good look at 2 of the top teams who could be playoff teams there. So, man, the schedule next week has some heavy hitter games. The Rams play the Niners on Thursday night. I mean, it's just there's a lot of really good games that are going on next week.
Separation week, it sounds like.
A little bit for some of those top teams. Raiders and the Buccaneers. We'll go back to the NFC South, down in Tampa. Tampa wins this game 28-13. Top 5 graded Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this game. Tyke Smith, their rookie corner, top of the list with a 90.9. Another rookie, edge rusher Chris Braswell with an 88.0. Offensive guard Cody Mock with an 84.0. Tight end Cade Otton, 81.9. Offensive tackle Luke Gadecki, an 80.2. Baker Mayfield in this game, a 65.8. On Las Vegas' side of things, safety Trayvon Merrick, very high score. 90.4 overall grade. Edge rusher Caleb Chason, a 79.9. Running back Sincere McCormick with a 76.8. Tight end Brock Bowers, a 70.0. Center Jackson Powers Johnson with a 70.0 as well. Aiden O'Connell in this game, a 48.6, but looked like he suffered a nasty lower body injury in this game. So edge is tough with them and their quarterback situation. Now Gardner Minshew out for the year. Didn't look pretty for Aiden O'Connell either. So looks like we're getting Desmond Ridder the rest of the way for the Vegas Raiders, but they lose this one. What's the stat that told the story here for you?
Really like the way that Liam Cohen called this game and how the Bucs handled this on offense. It was kind of a weird game too. Like you ever watch a movie but like you haven't watched it all the way through and you saw like the first 15 minutes and the last 15, you're like, okay, I get the idea here. That's what this game was, because the middle of it was really kind of a big lull. But Baker Mayfield on intermediate throws. The Raiders play a lot of cover 2, a lot of cover 3. That's what you're going to get out of them. They're not going to get in man a whole lot. Just they don't have the guys for it. We'll get into that in a minute. Intermediate throws for Baker Mayfield. 8 of 11, 175 yards, touchdown, 1 big-time throw, 85.6 passing grade. The one time he got impatient and tried to chuck the ball deep into the end zone, it got picked off. There was some pressure and things like that, but ball he shouldn't have thrown. This, for the Bucs, it was a classic thing of we've seen them, I think, at their best this year. They run the football well. Yards after catch, big thing in Liam Cohen's offense. Intermediate throws through the zone coverage. Baker stayed in his best moments in this game. Very patient. Had a couple of screw-ups and 2 turnover-worthy plays, I think it was. It was a strip sack and then, again, the deep ball into the end zone that was picked off. But I thought when he managed the game well, especially in the first and fourth quarter, he was drilling intermediate balls into these zone windows. And the Raiders, and then the checkdowns too, the Raiders play way, way, way off. I mean, they're the ultimate take what they give you defense. And the moments when Baker did that, that's when the Bucs offense moved forward. That's when they were scoring touchdowns.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of that. Bucs offensive conversions, I think, was the big stat that told the story. They were 1 for 1 on 4th down. They were 4 for 4 in the red zone. They were 3 for 3 in goal-to-go situations. I mean, this is a team that when you can have as much success as they do in those tighter situations, where we talk about, okay, converting in the red zone, why is it so important? Well, it's so important because not only are you you're getting 7 points instead of 3, but you're also proving that you know how to use your offensive pieces when space is more limited. Of course, when you're starting from your own 20 or your own 30, you got so much grass that the other team has to cover. Well, when you got the red zone, they've got the extra defender in the back of the end zone that they can work with, and it's more difficult to get your guys open when you're in the red zone. So anytime you have that success, not only is it like, yeah, okay, you're probably going to win the game, it's also a really good indicator that you got a really good play caller, a good play designer, a good quarterback who understands how to manage and throw the ball in those situations. And the Bucs were rolling in those really important areas of the field. My most impressive in this game was Rashad White, the running back for Tampa Bay. 17 carries for 90 yards and a touchdown. Also had 2 catches off 3 targets for 19 yards and a TD. Bucky Irving, who's had a fantastic last couple of weeks for this team, one of the best rookies from last year's draft class. He was suffering through like a hip and back injury during the week. He ended up playing, but he didn't play very much. And I think they held him out of this game once they went up pretty big early. They got kind of stagnant there on the offensive side of the ball, and it was like, all right, well, the Raiders coming back a little bit, they're hanging around a little, but I think they ended up pulling Bucky Irving because it's like, okay, well, we don't need you in this game. We've got Sean Tucker, we've got Rashad White, and the way that Rashad White, I think, it was nice to see, because I think a lot of Bucs fans that are on my timeline are saying like, hey, like Bucky Irving, he's RB1, you got to give him all the carries. Well, one, it doesn't really exist like that anymore. We're not talking about the Ricky Williams, Derek. Well, I guess,
unless it's Saquon or Henry.
I guess Saquon or Derrick Henry. I almost said Derrick Henry's name, but like the Larry Johnson year, he's getting like 440 carries or something like that. Like, we don't live in that world anymore. It is a by committee rushing attack basically everywhere in the NFL outside of those 2 spots that you named. And so, whether you want to see Bucky Irving at the top of that list getting the most touches or not, you still need somebody else there. Rashad White was sort of the RB1 coming into this season. He was the RB1 last season. A lot of people liked what he could be, but the run game in Tampa was just so poor behind that offensive line and that run design last year. It's a lot better this year. It's a lot more balanced, and I think we're seeing Rachaad White get to play some really good football because of it this past week included when they really needed him with Bucky Irving out of the lineup. What about you? What's your most impressive in this?
I'll go up front. I'll kind of stay in the run game here. For the second straight week, your right guard, Cody Mauch, has put up his highest overall grade in his career. 84.1 overall, 80.2 run block grade. That's his career high as well. One pressure allowed in pass protection. You know what? Very quietly, all of a sudden, he's getting hot lately. 74.4 overall grade this season, and I like kind of watching the development of this Bucs offensive line because the last couple of years what it's really been is Tristan Wirfs is great, Luke Gedicke's great, the interior, we got a lot of work to do.
Last year was bad.
Last year was rough. I think they were bottom 5 in the interior offensive line last year. Now, Cody Mauch in year 2 at right guard, looking pretty good, getting a lot better. Graham Barton holding his own. It hasn't been spectacular. He's getting used to NFL play strength and bigger defensive tackles and things like that. But all of a sudden, you kind of look at either late this year or next year. If Graham Barton takes a similar step like this that Mauch has taken, you might be talking about an elite offensive line because I like a lot of the things that Barton is doing. He's just, I think he needs – it's almost like he needs a year in the weight room to kind of become a sophomore in the league and just kind of get up to that level of strength. And Mauch, I'll tell you what, you can see in his tape right now, really strong, really athletic. He can move. There was a play in this game. He got out on a screen. He was about 25 yards downfield. He was flying. I think the only thing for him with me is his hand usage is still a little bit funny sometimes, but the potential on this guy and what they talked about coming out of North Dakota State, it's starting to come out because he's super athletic. He can move, and he's really strong, and you know he's got a mean streak. So I think the development along the interior for the Bucs here is something to watch at the end of the season and even going into next season.
It takes some time. It takes some guys time to
It's a young guys.
You got to give him a little bit of time.
Absolutely.
Right? Most disappointing for me, the Raiders secondary. It's been bad all season. You talked about how they play a lot of off-coverage stuff. I think it's just because they know they don't really have the guys to get it done. DeCamerion Richardson, a 43.7 overall grade. Jack Jones, 55.8 coverage grade. Darnay Holmes, 59.1. Isaiah Polamalu, and the safety level, 37.7. I mean, it was a terrible day for basically everybody that wasn't Trayvon Merrick, to be honest. So, Raiders secondary, it's a major issue that they have to address this offseason, and to me, they were the most disappointing. What about you?
Same. I'm just going to throw one more stat at you. They are currently pacing to have the worst coverage grade as a team since the Lions in 2020. That's the worst in 4 years. It's tough. That's bad. It's just they give up so many. Like you mentioned, they play so far off because they don't want to give up deep balls, but they're giving up too much space. And the Bucs knew it. They're like, we'll just work after the catch and we'll be fine. And I mean, they give you easy access to the chains. It's hard to watch, right?
I do feel bad for Antonio Pierce because not that I think that he is doing a ton to elevate the team right now, but that's without a doubt one of the worst rosters, if not the worst roster in the NFL.
Well, this is what now they look like for the first half of last year before Pierce was made the interim coach.
And Pierce gave them like a little bit of a bump.
Right.
But
defensively mainly.
And I think it was almost more like motivation than anything. And so that's why it's like I'm not sitting here saying that I think that Pierce is like a coach of the year type of candidate. I honestly, I don't know what Antonio Pierce is as a head coach. But I think it's really unfair to judge him off for this year. Now, whether or not you want to say that means that he deserves to have another year with this organization, I don't know. There's a lot that goes into that because I don't know how different this team's going to look. But to say like, oh, Antonio Pierce isn't a good head coach because of this year, what are you going to do, man? This team stinks.
I go all the way back to what we said in the preseason.
Right.
When they intentionally made their options Minshew and O'Connell, and I go, this just isn't going to work.
And here's the thing. If Mike Tomlin, Kevin O'Connell, Matt LaFleur, like if these guys are the head coach of the Raiders, sure, it's going to look better. Like it would look better. I'm not saying Antonio Pierce is like one of those guys, but maybe he could be a great head coach someday. I don't know. I'll tell you what, you're not going to learn anything from this year because it's horrendous. So it unfortunately like kind of feels like he's going to get fired at the end of the year because it's been that bad for the Raiders. But I feel bad for the team.
I think part of it is going to be clean start with a new quarterback.
100%. But it's situations like this that are why Ben Johnson goes, no, I'm good actually.
Yep.
It's situations like this because I don't know if Antonio Pierce ever gets a head coach job after this because people are just going to point to, well, we probably thought you were just a DC anyways. You did get a shot as a head coach, and it was bad, so we're not going to give you another one. And that sucks. That when you're not in like the boys club of head coaches, and obviously like minority head coaches, there's a lot of things that go into that as well, a lot of unfair things that go into that. And so I feel bad for Antonio Pierce. I really do.
I don't think there's a coach with this roster. I don't think there's a coach in the league winning with this.
I agree with you.
They got set up with Minshew. He got set up with Minshew and O'Connell, and Luke Getsy is his offensive coordinator, and that didn't work in Chicago, and they go and hire him anyway. I don't really know at this point how the Raiders could have succeeded this year. So, I don't know, fast track to Sanders, I guess.
Drew's in the chat saying Jacksonville. Like, as if I think he's saying in terms of like worst roster in the NFL, Jacksonville's roster is better than the Raiders.
Trevor Lawrence alone makes their roster better than the Raiders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think their roster is way better than the Raiders, which I think goes to say how bad of a job I think Doug Peterson has done this year, which is wild.
There's that too.
Saints and Giants. 14-11. What a ball game this was.
What a game. How many 14-11s? I got to scorigami this. How many of those have we had? Keep going, though.
We actually had scorigami with the Jets game. 32-26.
There we go.
Had never happened before. So the New Orleans Saints win this game. Top 5 graded player for the New Orleans Saints in this one. Look at this. Look at the top of the list. Edge rusher Chase Young, 89.6. I told you. Never wrong, just early. Cornerback Ugo Amadi with an 80.3. Edge rusher Carl Granderson at 79.9. Linebacker Demario Davis with a 79.9. Edge rusher Cameron Jordan a 74.2 to round things out at number 5. Derek Carr, 67.4. He out for the year? Is that what we saw with the hand injury? He fractured his hand?
Carr, if that's confirmed, he's probably done.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it confirmed yet.
I thought I saw somebody saying he fractured his hand when he went up and over, putting it all on the line for the team. Landed on his hand kind of awkwardly. Looked like he was in a lot of pain right away. Kind of looked like he was going to be something with the wrist or the hand. Fractured hand would make sense given the reaction. But 67.4 in this game. They end up winning this game. Not sure we're going to see Derek Carr the rest of the way. On the other side of things for the New York Giants, edge rusher Kayvon Thibodeau an 83.8. Center John Michael Schmitz, 79.5. Cornerback Trey Hawkins, the third, is 79.3. Guard Greg Van Roten with a 78.5. Linebacker Micah McFadden, a 77.7. And then Drew Lock, a 51.1. Stat that told the story.
Just for the fun of it, I went and looked up. We've had 4 14-11 games in NFL history. The last one was 2008. It was Jason Campbell and Washington and Santana Moss beating the Browns, Derek Anderson and the Browns 14-11.
I think I would have appropriately guessed Derek Anderson as the quarterback for the Browns.
Derek Anderson threw a touchdown pass to Josh Cribbs.
Wow.
Great stuff.
Great return, man.
Great stuff. Anyway, stat that told the story in this game. The Giants, they had plenty of chances. But, I mean, they just kind of didn't execute when it mattered. 5-19 on third down, 2 for 4 on fourth down, 1 for 3 in the red zone. Turnover on downs on the very first drive when they were in Saints territory. 2 chances to tie the game at the very end. Locke throws an interception, and you have the Brian Brzee blocked field goal, which was just an incredible play for a guy that size jumping over the line like that. Giants had plenty of chances in what became a tighter game, especially after Carr got hurt, but didn't take advantage of any of them, and that's just what happens. You know, I think if you're a team like the Giants and you have that many opportunities and you're knocking on the door, eventually you have to kick it in, and they just never did.
Yeah, pass game inefficiency really stands out in this game. Drew Lock starts things out 0 for 8. I mean, just kind of was a story. 21 for 49 overall for Drew Lock in this game. It's just never going to get it done, man. 11 points. Just how they performed in the passing game. Just all the inefficiencies from the Giants in the passing department. It just screams, hey, we're going to draft a quarterback in the upcoming draft. That was my unfortunate main takeaway from this game, is that it's just not good enough. Them moving on from Daniel Jones, I understand. They kind of were like, hey, this is over. Let's move on. Let's do it now. Just kind of like give our fans something else to talk about, so we don't have to talk about this all offseason. But it's just it wasn't good enough. Tyrone Tracy has 45 rushing yards in this game. Drew Lock has 59. You know, so it's just a 2.8 rush yards average for Tyrone Tracy. They're just not blocking things up well for him. It just feels like the Giants are kind of mailing it in. 2-11 on the season. Every week that goes by, I have less faith that Brian Daboll is actually going to survive this, because I don't know how you bring a guy back where the vibes were so low as it feels like they are right now.
The Jones thing seemed like it was mishandled internally, and then I think again it's the fresh start factor.
Yeah,
it's the thing.
The biggest thing going against Brian Daboll right now isn't even how they're playing on the field. I feel like it's just the fresh start.
And who knows if that'll be Joe Shane with him, but I think it's the thing.
I would have a hard time believing that Shane stays and
it's the thing that we've been talking about the Bears haven't done is they've never actually given themselves a fresh start. They've always done it a year late, right, with the last 3 quarterbacks they've had, and now we're doing it again with Eberflus. So I think teams, that is a motivating factor. And look, Dable's a terrific football coach. He's a guy, he's going to get another chance at some point, whether it's next year or a couple years from now, or he's at least going to be an OC next year somewhere. I would guarantee that. Really good football coach. It's just, again, with this team that he has, I don't really know what we expect him to do at this point. I mean, he's got Drew Lock playing out there behind a bottom 3 offensive line in football, and Dexter Lawrence is done for the year, and there's just not a whole lot. Yeah.
Most impressive for me is Brian Brzee. I mean, it was a game where there was not a lot of most impressive to choose from, I'm going to be honest with you. And I just picked Brzee because he had a couple of nice plays. He had a pressure. He had a sack. He had the blocked field goal. I mean, the overall grades weren't great. 53.4 overall grade, 36.9 run defense grade. I mean, those are objectively not good performances all around. But he had the one play that mattered most. He had the blocked field goal.
He won him the game.
And he won him the game. And so I'll give him most impressive because of that. Most disappointing, Khalid McKinstry, 3 catches allowed on 7 targets for 49 yards, 3 first downs allowed. So each one of the catches that he allowed was a first down allowed. 46.7 coverage grade. I like Khalid McKinstry. I think he's going to be good in this league, but a little disappointing for him today, especially going up against Malik Neighbors.
Most impressive, I'll stay on the D-line. How about Chase Young?
Top of the list for the grades, baby.
Career high, 12 pressures. 30% pass rush win rate, 89.6 overall grade. And the only funky part about that overall grade I found, I was going back and checking, is this his highest career grade? It wasn't. I believe it was 3rd. You know what's weird? 3 of his 4 highest graded games in his career against the Giants. Just a giant killer.
Full pun intended.
I guess so. Yeah, now that I think about it. Yeah. But
Giant
Chase
killer.
Young, when he sees the Giants, for some reason, it's just like a raging bull. He just decides he just doesn't like that team. I don't know what it is about the Giants that pissed him off so much, but every time Chase Young plays the Giants, well, I'll tell you, maybe just, if there's some sort of bet on him or a sack bet. He didn't have a sack in this game, but 12 pressures is pretty good. I would bet he gets a sack next time. Whenever he plays the Giants, that's where I'm going with it. Keep it in mind for next year.
PFF Edge right there.
There it is, right there. Only here can you get that info.
Most disappointing?
Just Giants weapons not named Malik Neighbors. They're going to be looking for weapons to put around Malik Neighbors. I mean, you got Tyrone Tracy, he'll still be there, but he had 2 drops as a receiver. Neighbors was the only player with 50 receiving yards or at least a 64 receiving grade. He had 3 explosives. The rest of the team had 2. That's what we have. On this offense, we have Andrew Thomas when he's healthy. We have Tyrone Tracy's pretty good, and we have Malik Neighbors, and everything else is open for business. That's how this offseason is going to be.
From one New York team to the other, we'll get to the New York Jets in a second, but before that, the new year, it's a great time to reevaluate the financial goals, right? Not just for yourself, but also for your kids. It's the perfect time to make sure your kids are on a path towards a great financial future, and a kids investment account from Fabric by Gerber Life is a quick and simple way to set up that future and lets you invest in their future right now for education, big milestones, and so much more. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With a kids investment account from Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. Kids, they cannot invest while they are minors, but a kids investment account allows you to invest on their behalf, gives their investments more time to grow. Whole thing is online. Setup is very easy. Get an account. It just takes 5 minutes, and then you can manage your child's account, monitor all those investments right from your phone. All online, and your child's account can be monitored right there. Starts with $20 and no contribution limits, tax advantages. Funds your SIPC insured up to $500,000. No commission, just a low, flat monthly maintenance fee. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Today, start investing in your child's future at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. It's meetfabric.com, meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. The portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investment is subject to risk. You can learn more at meetfabric.com. Your New York Jets kept it close.
Good day. Kept it close and got moved up the draft order. I think a very good day.
Exactly what you need. 32-26, the final score. The Miami Dolphins victorious in this one. We'll take a look at the top 5 Miami Dolphin players. Start things out since they got the win. Linebacker Jordan Brooks, a 91.5, and a high run defense grade, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a second. Wide receiver Jalen Waddle, an 82.8. Offensive tackle Kendall Lamb with a 78.5. Safety Jordan Poyer, a 76.2. And then edge rusher Calais Campbell with a 72.6. Quarterback Tua Tagovailoa in this one, a 77.2. And then on New York side of things, at the very top of the list, we got defensive tackle Solomon Thomas. Look at that, 85.2 overall grade. Wide receiver Garrett Wilson with an 82.2. And then fellow wide receiver Devontae Adams next on the list at a 74.7. Running back Braylon Allen, a 69.5. Running back Isaiah Davis, a 68.6. Aaron Rodgers in this one, good day from Aaron, 82.7. Which stat told the story, Dalton?
So the Dolphins, funny enough, they were really bad on third down in this game. I think it was 1 for 9. But it didn't matter because they were so darn good on early downs. They picked up 18 first downs on early down plays. That was the most by any team in any game this season. All right, 0.267 EPA per play on early downs, 6.9 yards per play. And something I want to throw in there because the Jets kind of struggle with it. They had 190 yards after the catch just on early downs. The screen game, especially in overtime, we saw 2 times in a row with Jonnu Smith. Jets just kind of gave him the space, and that was that. They just had to make open field tackles and really been struggling to tackle all year. We've talked about that, but the Dolphins and their ability to make chunk plays and yards after the catch on first and second down was really a big key for their offense because, they weren't good on third down. They were not good on short yardage in this game. First and 10, and then when they had advantageous second down situations, they took full advantage when they could. So they weren't in third down too often, and this is the reason.
Jets' lack of complementary football is sort of like my stat that told the story here because 26 points, that's the second most points they've had in a single game this season. Both of their highest scoring games they have lost. The other one was against Indianapolis when it was 28-27. They lose that game at the buzzer. And so both of the games in which the Jets have scored their highest points output, they have lost. And I just think it's sort of a representation of their season and how, no Sauce Gardner in this game. And it was just one of the showings that it's not the same Jets team that it was before, right? We talked about the Jets team last year and the year before. It's just like, man, give me average quarterback play and this team makes the playoffs. We're not really there right now. We're not there anymore with where this team currently is at on the defensive side of the ball. So they're lacking that complementary football. If the offense plays well, the defense plays bad. If the defense plays good, the offense plays bad. Like, it's something every week with the Jets that is holding them back. And so whoever's going to be the next head coach, they've got to be able to tie those things together a lot better. Most impressive for me is Jordan Brooks. 91.5 grade, 91.4 run defense grade for the Miami Dolphins. So he's standing out in a big way. 83.0 and 93.4 run defense grade over, so 83.0 overall grade and 93.4 run defense grade over the last 5 weeks. So Jordan Brooks is playing really well in the middle of that defense for this Miami Dolphins team. So a big shout out to him as the most impressive, I thought, in this one. And then most disappointing, I just had anyone covering anyone.
Yep.
That was the most disappointing in this football game. Both quarterbacks over 300 yards passing, over 77.1 passing grade, no turnover-worthy plays forced on either of these quarterbacks all game long, above 80 adjusted completion percentage for both of them, quarterback rating over 100, and both of them were top 8 in the NFL in EPA per pass for their offenses this week. Nobody could cover anybody. You couldn't get after them. You couldn't rattle them. And sure, kudos to the quarterbacks. Of course, I don't want to take anything away from the quarterbacks, but the defense has got to play a little bit better than this somewhere. And it just felt like they were tough on both sides.
For most of the year, these have just been two defenses that aren't very good, and it showed, again, both of their flaws. But I'll tell you what, I'll stick with the run defense team for most impressive. Jets' run defense actually showed up, and you know what? They've showed up the last 3 weeks. Through Week 10, they were 29th in the NFL in run defense grade. The last 3 weeks, they're actually first. And in this game, they only gave up 44 yards on 19 carries. The Dolphins in the second half of this game only ran for 4 yards. Jets' run defense now, finally, after 10 weeks of not great, finally showed up. And then the coverage fell apart. My most disappointing, I'll focus in on one of those anyone covering anyone things. Rough day for Jalen Ramsey. He had the assignment on Garrett Wilson. and Garrett Wilson won the battle. He allowed 6 catches, 146 yards, all of them for first downs, 39.8 coverage grade. It's been a cold stretch for Ramsey here. 45.5 coverage grade over his last 4 games. So not only is it a weakest link thing sometimes with the secondary where you talk about you're only as strong as your weakest link, but when your superstar player is struggling, you're going to struggle to cover in the secondary for sure.
Yeah, especially because Ramsey has been playing well this season. It's been a good year from Jalen Ramsey. It just was a tough day at the office for him. And again, if for the way that the rest of that coverage unit has played this year, like you said, if Ramsey is struggling, it's probably going to be a tough day at the office for you. Jags Titans. What a barn burner this was. 10-6 final score in this one. Jacksonville with the big time win. We'll get into the ramifications of what that means for Jacksonville in a second. But first, we take a look at their top 5 graded players in the game. Edge rusher Josh Hines down at the top of the list with a 90.2. Safety Andre Sisco an 84.5. Cornerback Tyson Campbell a 79.7. Linebacker Devin Lloyd a 79.6. And Monteric Brown a 78.5. Mac Jones in this one a 64.6 overall grade. And then on Tennessee's side of things, Jeffrey Simmons at the very top of the list with an 80.7. Chidobe Awuzie with a 76.5. Running back Tony Pollard a 76.5. Defensive tackle Sebastian Joseph Day a 73.1. Guard Peter Skoronski a 70.8. And Will Levis in this game, not the worst, not the best, 63.2. Which stat that told the story?
Okay, so it's going to be Levis, and my stat is a 5.8 yard average depth of target, which is the second lowest of his career. But it sounds funny, even though this is a game that has no playoff implications or nothing other than the draft, of course. I really wanted to know when I flipped on the tape for this game, how in the world do you only score 6 points on Jacksonville? How? That was the answer. I needed this answer. Mm-hmm. Like I needed the answer to anything in any of the big games. Seriously, I needed this answer like I needed air because it made no sense to me. Here's what I've got with the Titans offense now with this game. If your name is not Ridley or Latham or Skoronski, I don't think your job is safe.
Oh, no.
No.
Well, I mean,
no.
They signed Pollard to the contract. Pollard's not going anywhere.
Fine. What did he get? A 3-year deal? Was it?
Yeah. But I see where your point is. But you might as well throw Pollard in there because he's not going
because of the money. Sure, but even then, okay.
This is also Nick Westbrook-Ikine slander, but I'll let you.
Brian Callahan called this game like he just did not trust this offense, and I get it. They've had their struggles.
Did you see his post-game press conference afterwards?
I didn't. What did he say?
No, it was. I'm like paraphrasing here because I only watched it once, but it's very strange. He basically had his opening statements, and he was like, a lot of positives in this game. He's he kind of rattled off a couple. One of them, he's he praised the special teams for not letting them start before the 30-yard line all game, but it was very strange. We've seen Brian Callahan be very animated before. You remember a couple of the crazy Will Levis throws at the beginning of the season where the camera pans over to the sideline for Brian Callahan, and he's extremely animated. And he's basically what the hell are you doing? What are we doing? This is great. So he's been very animated and passionate. You just lost a game 10-6
to Mac Jones
at home
against
Mac Jones. You couldn't put up more than 6 points against a struggling Jacksonville secondary, which played well this week. I'll give him their credit. But still, you could only muster 6 points in this game, and he comes out in his opening press conference, and he's like, a lot of positives. And it wasn't even the words that he was saying. It was the message he was sending and how he looked defeated. He looked like he was just a lot of positives in this game. Because he looked like he was tired of yelling about the negatives. And he just was I'm not going to talk about it today. I don't care.
He called plays like he was defeated. First drive was 10 plays, all right? 9 runs and a screen.
No way.
His first 8 play calls were run plays. He called this game.
Wow.
He called this game with zero trust for Will Levis. And I get it. Levis is struggling. I will tell you this. Based on the way, and it sounds funky, because I'm not saying anything earth-shattering. The way he called this game, I would say there's no chance Will Levis is his quarterback next year. Zero. He's got no trust in him. Will Levis.
8 runs and a screen is bad.
10-play drive that ended in a field goal. 9 runs, 1 screen. There's zero trust in Will Levis.
Wow.
Zero. It's gone. Whatever trust he had left in him is gone. And for
Honestly, it pairs with the tone of him after the game.
And for maybe a justifiable reason. Will Levis in this game, without a screen or play action, because Tony Pollard did run well in this game. No screen, no play action. 7 of 16 for 44 yards and 2 turnover-worthy plays. He has the lowest passing grade in the NFL without play action this year. Will Levis, after watching the tape of this game and the way Callahan called plays, essentially, like you mentioned, just trying to get through it, I don't know if they'll win another game. And there's no chance Will Levis is a quarterback next year. No, he has zero trust in him. Whatever shred of trust he had in him is gone. And in this entire offense. Pollard, Ridley, Latham, Skoronski. Those guys will be there next year.
Even Skoronski's not been great.
He's been very mediocre. Yeah. It's anybody outside of those 4 guys, it's going to be open season. And they're going to completely rebuild this offense. I don't know if they'll be picking in a spot to take a Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward, or if they'll take a gamble on somebody else in the draft. I don't know if they're the Sam Darnold team maybe, if Minnesota doesn't sign him. They're going to have another quarterback next year. And I'll tell you, I don't care what any tea leaves or anything else says. The way they called plays in this game against this defense, zero trust whatsoever.
Yeah, and I mean, the offense is, I think the offense when it mattered most is sort of my stat that told the story. 8 for 16 on third down, 50%. It's not the worst. It's fine. But, that's the best of those stats. 0 for 3 on fourth down, 0 for 2 in the red zone, 0 for 1 on goal-to-go situations. They just don't.
There's no excuse to score 6 points on this team.
Zero. Man. I didn't realize that about the opening drive. I saw that throughout the game, obviously, with the stats I rattled off there, that they just were not good enough. But that's somebody who does not trust. And again, the post-game press conference is very shocking to me. Brian Callahan does not seem like the kind of dude who would go up to the press conference and just, for lack of a better word, just, try to feed people bullshit. He looked like he was up there and he was like, I'm contractually obligated to say words in front of this microphone after this game. But I can't really tell you all what I want to tell you. So I'm just going to say things.
The way he called plays tells me he doesn't believe in what he has on offense. Mm-hmm. And I get it. They've won, 3 games this year? I get it.
Oh, it's understandable.
But if there's going to be a lack of compete in the last month with the Titans, it's going to be a rough look.
Brian in the chat just said, you're missing the storyline. Mac Jones, who's from Jacksonville, grew up hating the Titans because of the rivalry, ends up the QB of the Jags, then goes in there and beats them. For him, it was a personal win.
It's great stuff.
I understand that. Don't want to take anything away from Mac Jones.
To him.
And I do think it's really cool that Mac...
You could have worse backups than Mac Jones.
100%.
Honestly.
Yeah. And I mean, look, Mac is very volatile himself. It's not like even Mac had a great game this past game. But they scored 10 points. They won the game. It was on the road. It was cool. It was a cool moment for him. I also think that it's cool he's getting an opportunity to start for Jacksonville. Because when he goes to Jacksonville from New England, it's kind of a situation where it's okay, well, I'm never playing. I just get to be on the team that I grew up rooting for, but I'll never play because they have Trevor Lawrence, and now he gets an opportunity where he actually gets to play. It is a cool side quest story of what we talk about when we talk big picture about things. Most impressive Jags secondary. 79.0 team secondary grade, highest of the season. Cisco, Monteric Brown, Tyson Campbell, Ronald Darby, all of them with grades above 74. You love to see that. 7 forced incompletions of the team. This was the best secondary performance from the Jacksonville Jaguars this season. And I don't just think it was because they went up against a terrible offense. I think they also independently played well.
Sure.
I think the Jags secondary and how they played this week is part of the reason why the Titans passing offense kind of sucked. But giving them their shout out there. And then, okay, what's your most impressive and most disappointing? Because I got a big picture thing I'm getting to with most disappointing.
Most impressive, the best player on the field for either of these teams, Josh Hines-Allen. Only 3 pressures. They had a 4th one that was negated by a holding call in the secondary. Did have a sack, actually right at the end of the first half. 91.4 pass rush grade. He's a star. We know this. Titans offensive tackles. I've talked about Titans O-line all year. J.C. Latham, who had been better the last 3 or 4 weeks, kind of struggled in this game. 48.2 pass pro grade. Nick Petit-Frere is a guy who I probably think the Titans are looking for a new right tackle, but it was a problem off the edge in this game. Hines-Allen and even Trayvon Walker had pretty good games off the edge for Jacksonville. So I've talked about the Titans O-line a lot. I'm curious to see what you have here for your most disappointing. You sound excited.
Most disappointing? Jags winning football game. Because big picture, look, I don't want to take anything away from Jags fans who like celebrating win. If you want your team to always win no matter what in all circumstances, celebrate the win. That's fine. the Jags winning this football game, a meaningless football game for them in which their starting franchise quarterback had nothing to do with it. There's no major building blocks moving forward except for maybe you look at the secondary and think the secondary is in a little bit better spot with the depth. Maybe you think, okay, Andre Sisco, who's a free agent, maybe you're a little bit closer to bringing him back because of the game that he played in this one. Obviously, like the edge rushers played well. All that being said, they moved from picking number 1 overall to now number 5 overall if the season were to end today. That is extremely detrimental.
Does it cost you Travis Hunter?
Yeah, it cost you Travis Hunter, but like more importantly, it costs you a trade down. Because that's the thing, is that the Jags aren't debating Travis Hunter or some other prospect at number 1 overall if they get the number 1 overall pick. What the Jags are doing is they're debating Travis Hunter or trading down. And the beauty is that with the draft set up the way that it is right now, it's Las Vegas at the top and it's the New York Giants right after them. It was, I believe going into this week, it was Jacksonville at number 1 and then a combination of the Raiders and the Giants behind them. So in reality, they could have been in a situation where maybe they even trade down to 4 or 5. Maybe they still even have a chance to get Travis Hunter, but you're just trading down from number 1 overall. Now, because of the quarterback class that we're in, you're not getting 3 first-round picks for number 1 overall this year. But you're getting some good return.
Here's the thing about that, though. The demand is far greater than the supply.
The demand is greater, but we sort of thought that with the 2022 class as well. And I think that this quarterback class is better than the 2022 class. I want to be very clear there. But we thought that quarterback demand was always going to be high enough to where you were still going to be getting teams that are going to be heavily overdrafting. Well, in that year, Kenny Pickett's the only one who goes in the first round, and then the next quarterback's Desmond Ridder to the third. So, again, I'm not saying that we're in that point, but you're not getting 3 first-round picks, I think, from trading down from number 1. You would have got an extra first-round pick somewhere, maybe 1, and then, like, some change, maybe a couple day 2 picks, something like that. Whatever it was for Jacksonville, you take that all day long because you got your franchise quarterback already. So that's why it's like it's more of a big picture thing. And, again, I hate doing this, even as a draft guy. If you're a Jacksonville fan and you want your team to win, you got to win. Great. Be happy. I'm not trying to take that away from you. But the reality is, you're not doing anything this year, and you just dropped 4 spots in the draft order. That's tough.
It is. There's a ways to go, though.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Especially from like you're probably not really taking anything culturally away from this win anyways, because the whole staff's probably going to be out in 4 weeks. Just kind of tough. That's all I'm saying.
It is what it is.
That's all I'm saying.
Short term, long term, still got to go out there and compete. It is what it is.
Any final points before we move on? Are you good? Okay.
Yeah, I think you summed it up.
Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals. Seattle wins this one. Takes the top of that division. 30-18 is the final score here. This one in Arizona, big road win for Seattle. Their top 5 graded players in this game: wide receiver Jackson Smith and Jigba with an 84.1. Defensive tackle Jerron Reed with an 84.1 as well. Running back Zach Charbonnet, who was in for the injured Kenneth Murray, an 80.4 overall grade. Safety Rayshon Jenkins with a 76.3. Guard Lakey Tomlinson round things out at number 5 with a 74.6. Geno Smith in this one, a 79.2. On Arizona's side of things, their safety Budda Baker's at the top of the list with an 87.2. Tight end Trey McBride, as he often is, in this top 5 here at number 2 with a 73.7. Offensive tackle Paris Johnson Jr., a 70.9. Running back James Conner, a 69.2. Then offensive tackle Jonah Williams, a 69.0. Kyler Murray in this game, 65.2. Dalton, what'd you think of this one? Divisional matchup, stat that told the story?
I'm going to put stat that told the story and most impressive in one swing here. First of all, the Seahawks, just when you look at this, played a really clean game. They only had 4 negative plays the entire game. No sacks allowed, which is big for their offensive line because there's times where it struggles. No turnovers, which is great. And I think for me, the entire mentality of the Seahawks and the way Mike McDonald and Ryan Grubb went about this was spectacular. I think this is, Ryan Grubb's my most impressive. I think this is the best, by far, the best game he called all season. Arizona. Now, the first game was weird because it was in the pouring rain, and it was just going to be about who made the first mistake. And it was just one of those pouring rain games in Seattle because that's how that goes.
It rains.
It rains in Seattle, for darn sure. This game, you're going into Arizona. Arizona's defense recently have been playing really well at home. And now they've been playing above their talent level because they got really good at just preventing explosive passing plays, especially. It's like the one thing. If you have a less talented defense, just don't give up home runs. Like what the Raiders tried to do in the Tampa game, the Cardinals actually execute that a lot better. Okay, cool. We know the Seahawks are the type of team that really likes the deep ball, right? Geno, Metcalf, even Smith and Jigba, right? They did a good job of kind of breaking the tendency a little bit. Geno Smith's average depth of target, 5.8 yards in this game. He completed 80% of his passes, 24 of 30. Ryan Grubb called 50.8% of his run plays in this game. All right, so and that's by far their highest of the season. All right, there's been games this year where they're less than 25% run. You remember the Giants game when they only ran 7 times?
You're right.
They came out and did 2 things. Knowing the Cardinals were not just going to give them explosive. They only completed 1 deep ball all day, and that was the Smith and Jigba touchdown. And that was a really great play design because they just got him isolated on his safety and quarters on that side the whole bit. When they got their looks to take shots, they did. But for the most part, it was running the ball with Zach Charbonnet. Even with Kenneth Walker out, yeah, we're going to run the ball today. More than we have all season. Shorter and intermediate throws, and even in the screen game from Geno Smith. It was just a more conservative, balanced approach against a defense that's what you need to do. Win after the catch, win on the ground. Don't try to force deep shots because you think you're better than them. The Cardinals on the back end this year execute a lot better than they did last year. Okay? Ryan Grubb did a great job with just the mentality of this offense this week and relaying that to Geno and everybody, all the weapons. And the offensive line played a lot better than they did in most games. Of just taking what the Cardinals gave them. And he did it all day. And eventually, they took, not even eventually, it was very early in the game actually, they took advantage of the mistakes that Kyler Murray gave them with the 2 early interceptions. Stay conservative. Don't be the team that makes mistakes. Don't take shots when they don't want you to take shots. When they're preventing those deep shots, work underneath them. I thought the Seahawks, just philosophically on offense, did a great job of throwing the curveball in this game, and Ryan Grubb, to me, is the most impressive part of it. He came in with his best game plan of the season.
Love it. Love the shout-out. Kyler Murray. The top title that I have here for him in this game is Jekyll and Kyler.
Yep.
I don't know what I'm going to get from him every single week.
Drive to drive, even.
Throw to throw.
The first drive of this game, it was like, oh, shoot, the Cardinals, here they come.
Right.
And then he threw 2 straight picks after that. It's drive to drive.
61.8 passing grade this game. 1 big-time throw, 2 turnover-worthy plays. He now is the 8th most turnover-worthy plays in the NFL. He's 21st in turnover-worthy play percentage, though, so I want to give him some credit there. 7 turnover-worthy plays in the last 3 games. So his volatility is really cranked up to the next level over the last 3 games, where there were times in the beginning of the season, I would say through the first about 10 weeks, where you didn't really know what you were going to get, but it could have been great, could have been like, okay, not really great. Now it's like there's a couple of weeks where he just has not been playing great football, or at least he's been putting the ball in harm's way quite a bit. And yeah, obviously the Cardinals still have a chance to make the playoffs. I'm not really taking that away from them there. But what I really want to see from Kyler, most importantly over these next 4 games, is take care of the football better. Understand how you need to be sort of a different quarterback for your team game to game. It just doesn't have to be this sort of same script every single game. And I feel like that's what we're getting from Kyler. And it's been way too up and down for them. And I think he is both a reason why they win and a reason why they lose at this point. And you don't want to say that about your quarterback, or at least if you do, it's really tough to know what version you're going to get week in, week out, because it makes it really tough to game plan for. So the volatility of what Kyler has been this season, I think, has made it harder for them to game plan on offensive exactly what to do. Because you want to have the ball in his hands, but the more you do, it feels like the more up and down it is for him.
Yeah, the up and down part is big. And I think, look, there's been a couple moments this year where he's come through in the clutch, right? The 49er game, the Dolphin
I'm not going to take anything away from him but like the 49er game, they came back running the football.
Yes. And in the Dolphin game, the fourth quarter, that was him.
Yes,
right?
yes.
But the problem is there's been too many other games where they don't have this level of margin for error, because the Niners have had a tough season. The Dolphins have had a tough season. Talk about the Lions game. Not a lot of margin for error. They tried to put it on his back. Didn't happen, right? The last 3 weeks, the game in Seattle with the pick 6. Last week in Minnesota, game-winning drive shot after they blew a lead. Interception. This game, it was early. The 2 interceptions early just killed it. When you're down 17-7, especially against a Seattle team that feels like they can run the ball in this game, it's a problem. Kyler Murray, look, volatility is what it is. But when you're in games where you don't have a lot of margin for error, the last 3 games, They were 6-4 3 weeks ago. And now the 3 biggest games of the season, 2 is Seattle. I guess there's a slim chance, but with losing the tiebreaker to Seattle now, they're just about done for this division, contending in this division. And your problem is in the wild card race, you're chasing Washington, who you're 2 games behind, and you lost to them also.
And the NFC North teams, obviously.
And yeah, they're not going to get. And they lost to the Packers too.
Right.
And Minnesota, they lost to everyone in front of them so far, except for the Rams.
Yeah.
It's actually, with 4 weeks to go and 2 games behind all those teams, their playoff chances are actually just about shot. Unless even if they win their last 4 and they're 10-7, they lose every tiebreaker. I actually don't see a way the Cardinals can make the playoffs now, having lost to they've lost to everybody in front of them. All 3 of the wild cards plus Seattle twice. And it's because of that up and down nature. And look, I think no matter what we've seen from them, they're playing New England next week. They should still win. Playing Carolina the week after that. That'll be fun.
That'll be fun.
Rams and Niners, okay. They have had a good season with a lot of progress. Just not quite ready for that.
That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. And that's why I say, like, over the next 4 weeks, I'd love to see Kyler become basically a more streamlined version of what we can get from him, even if it lowers the ceiling a little bit. Now, I'm talking as somebody sitting in front of a microphone. I'm not coaching the team. That's probably not going to happen, because there's going to be points over the next 2-3 weeks where they're going to say, like, Kyler, save us, because if you don't, we have no chance to make the postseason. They basically have to go on a run, and he's going to fuel them to do it. So I don't know if we're going to get what I'm asking. It's probably not realistic, but
I don't know if you haven't done like a fix your franchise because they've been in it. What could they add to this offense that could help them? And it's a good offense, and they can run, and Marvin Harrison is coming along. He's not exploded onto the scene, but obviously and Trey McBride's great, and James Conner's great. But is there something missing, or is it actually just he needs to be better?
No, I mean, I think the offensive line has been a little up and down for them. I think Paris Johnson has obviously been fine. He's going to be at one of those offensive tackle spots. I think you're probably looking at drafting an offensive tackle in the draft at some point this year. There have been points when the interior offensive line has been good, but again, that's been an up and down unit of the team. I think you want the offensive line to be better because you need the run game to be able to take it off of Murray's shoulders a little bit more, and he needs to be more of a, as weird as this is to say, like, I would rather him be a little bit more efficient at this point than just explosive. Like, I know it's sort of like risky, like coaching that out of players, but to me, it's just way too up and down right now. You know, the best version of what he brings to the table is sort of like that Josh Allen thing, right? Where Josh Allen can win you games whenever, but he's at that point in like his own identity of like, he knows when to turn it on. And we'll get to, I think we're getting to that game next. Like, this week was a Josh Allen game. Like, they needed Josh Allen to be a superhero for them. And he goes, okay, I can. But there are other games when they go, we don't need that from you. And he goes, okay, I could take a step back then. I don't know if Murray has that balance right now. It's just, it feels like it's an imbalance in the offense because they've got great pieces. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to get better. I like Michael Wilson. Trey McBride's awesome. I like Greg Dortch, just like a third wide receiver. Like, all of that is fine to me. James Conner's great. DeMercado's great as a spellback. You could be a little bit better along the offensive line, and I think that they'll certainly look into that. But to me, it's more of a how Murray approaches the game kind of a thing. Getting more comfortable with Drew Petzing, and maybe Drew Petzing being able to go into their offensive coordinator, going into an offseason, and both of them kind of sitting down and being like, hey, this is what's best for the Cardinals. This is how I make you the best version of you as a quarterback. It doesn't have to be this MVP type of a player every single week. It could be a little bit different. And I think they're rounding out their offense to be able to get to that point, which I didn't think was the case a couple of years ago. So that would be my answer to that question.
That's reasonable. I think it felt too like in this game early that Petzing kind of went to Kyler early. Even though it was still early in a game and a close game, and then with 2 interceptions, it wasn't. So I think maybe all the way around, it's a young coaching staff too. So I'm just curious to see if it's going to be all defense in the offseason, or if there's just if there's going to be one more dimension added to an offense that is pretty good, just streaky.
My most impressive, Zach Charbonnet in this game. No Kenneth Walker, 22 carries, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6.1 yards per carry average, but it's the individual stats that we love to shout out here, even independent of the offensive line. 125 yards after contact, 5.7 yards after contact average. Didn't have a ton of forced missed tackles in this game, but still, Charbonnet is going to be somebody who's going to give you those tough yards, and he absolutely did this game. Most disappointing, I'll just do that one real quick. Tyler Lockett in this one, 45.5 receiving grade, 66.9 receiving grade on the season, It's the second lowest of his career, with Jackson Smith-Njigba taking a bigger role. Obviously, DK Metcalf is going to be that contested catch guy deep down the field and that X type of receiver. It feels like Lockett, his role is just getting less and less and less. He had only a 3.6 threat percentage, 1 target in this game, 1 drop. Although it was, we credit it with a drop because it hit his hands. It was a tough throw. It was that sort of like corner of the end zone, sideline of the end zone throw.
That was the Geno dime down the right sideline?
And it was a beauty by Geno. But it was still, it's not like it was the easiest catch in the world and he dropped it. But, it hit the hands. We've seen Tyler Lockett come up with that before. So we credit him with a drop on that one. But just overall, that's his only target of the game. And so it's just feels a little twilight of Tyler Lockett's career-ish, and he seems to be taking a step back. And obviously that's disappointing. He's a really fun player in this league. Let's get to the fireworks show. Buffalo Bills at Los Angeles Rams, 44-42. The final score of this game, the Rams defend home turf and get a win here. What a game this was. Los Angeles Rams, top 5 graded players in this game, starting off with wide receiver Puka Nacua, a 92.3. Offensive tackle Alaric Jackson and offensive tackle Rob Havenstein back-to-back here at number 2 and 3 with an 89.5 and an 85.6. Defensive tackle Kobe Turner with an 81.1 and wide receiver Cooper Kupp an 80.5. Quarterback Matthew Stafford, one of the best games that you'll see from a quarterback this season. A 93.5 overall grade. He was unbelievable in this one. Not to make light of what the guy on the other side of things did. Buffalo's side of the grades, edge rusher Von Miller, 84.7. Wide receiver Amari Cooper, 79.0. Offensive guard David Edwards with a 74.8. Wide receiver Khalil Shakir with a 73.2. Cornerback Christian Benford with a 68.2. And then I mentioned Josh Allen, a 90.1 elite PFF grade to try to keep up with Matthew Stafford. And boy, it was fun going back and forth all night with these two quarterbacks. Sad to tell the story here.
Okay, I know I do this every week, and you're probably sick of me saying it, but it's, as usual, the Rams pass protection. That this is just
a good one.
Good
one for them.
In a good way.
Because some have been bad.
I think
some have been tough.
Absolutely. I think I'd have to go back and look and see how many times this is what I've gone with for the Rams, because it's just what it is.
Yeah.
68.7 pass pro grade as a team in this game. No sacks allowed. 35 dropbacks for Stafford. Pressured 9 times. Clean pocket. 18-22. 248, 2 touchdowns, 2 big-time throws. 94.9 passing grade. 3rd highest graded passer this season in a clean pocket. He's an older quarterback. He's still got a rifle. He can make any throw he wants to. Just protect him. When the Rams do it, in their, what is it now? They have 7 wins. They're 7-6. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Their 7 wins. Their pass pro grade is somewhere, I think it's around a 65 or so. And in their 6 losses, it's a 40. This is just where we're at. When they protect Matt Stafford, they can beat anybody.
Blocking's important. Who knew?
Extremely. Especially for this specific team. I don't think there's any team with a greater split of when they pass protect versus when they don't, and winning and losing ball games this year. Because we've seen it in the New England game, in this game, we've seen it in a million other games this year. When he's protected, they're going to score a lot of points. As long as obviously Nacua and Kupp are healthy too, because how darn good was Puka Nacua in this game. But that's it. That's it for me. I know the real story is the quarterbacks, but for the Rams, if they protect Stafford, they can beat anybody. Any one-game scenario, this is not the team I'm trying to see because of this single factor. If they pass protect, he can put up 44 points on you just like this.
Rams efficiency was the stat that told the story for me. 11 for 15 on 3rd down. That's 73%. 1 for 1 on 4th down. Obviously 100 there, and 83% in the red zone. We talked about Patrick Mahomes on 3rd down when we opened up the show. Matthew Stafford, 91.9 passing grade on 3rd down. This dude was unbelievable last night. He was playing the quarterback position at about as good of a rate as you could possibly play, and they needed every bit of it to beat this Buffalo Bills team, because the fun part about this game, which included 84 points, no sacks, no turnovers for either team, was that I kind of hinted at this. Last month, on this show and on the preview show, I've talked a lot about the Buffalo Bills, and I've talked about them as the most balanced team in the NFL. Like them and the Detroit Lions. Like Detroit, you can obviously throw in there. But they ran the ball so well. They passed the ball so well. Whether it was wide receivers, whether it was tight ends, whether the deep passes, short passes, whether it was the explosive runs or the runs that you just needed to set you up in good 2nd and 3rd down situations, whatever it was. And the best part about it was Josh Allen was whatever they needed him to be for any of those situations. And that's that's why I felt as though he deserved to be heavily in the MVP conversation, even if some other quarterbacks might have better numbers, because when you look at what he has been asked to do and who he has been asked to be for this team, I'm not taking anything away from Joe Burrow when I say this, but Joe Burrow goes into every game for the Cincinnati Bengals knowing if I don't ball out, we lose. And it's sometimes easier as a mentality to just go, I have to be the man in this game. We just talked about this with Kyler Murray and how I'm still sort of waiting for him to get to this point of like who he is as a quarterback. Josh Allen is there, where Joe Brady, their offensive coordinator, nobody's going to say this to him before the game, but like in the middle of the game, you could feel it. Like he could probably say to Josh, like, hey, let's lean on the run game a little bit here. These guys are running the ball really well. Guys are kicking ass up front. Let's lean into the running game a little bit here.
That's what last week was. Yeah.
And it can be, and Josh can go, okay, and he can throttle down. Or he can ramp up. In this game, very clearly it was like, okay, Buffalo's, doing their thing. They're very balanced. They're trying to keep pace. And then once the Rams really started to ramp it up, I think that he probably got on the phone or the headset or something with Joe Brady, and Joe Brady was like, it's time, brother, unleash. And Josh went, okay. And the second he said that, he became everything they needed him to be. For as good as the Los Angeles Rams played in this game, they won by 2 points at home. I'm almost, not quite, but almost more impressed by the Buffalo Bills losing this game, but losing it as closely as they did, as I am the Rams, because the Bills were able to kick it into high gear immediately. With Josh Allen saying, they gave him the cape. They gave him the uniform, and they said, be Superman. And he went, okay, and immediately did it, especially in that third and fourth quarter. So this was just such a fun football game. And again, so much praise to what the Rams were able to do. Kyron Williams was doing his thing like he always does. The wide receivers were unbelievable. I talked about how Matthew Stafford played about as good of a game as you're going to see from the quarterback position. But they needed all of that just to win by 2 after scoring 44 points. And that's a Josh Allen stat as well that I think that needs to get recognized here.
When it happened, when the Rams blocked the punt and returned it for a touchdown, it was 17-7.
Yes,
that's when it happened.
Yeah,
that's because you look around, and if you're Joe Brady and you go, oh, we're in this type of game where we're going to get this weird special teams play against us, and we're down 10 early, and that's I could tell you right now that's the exact moment it happened. When they blocked that punt, and it was 17-7. They said, all right, Josh, this is one of these days because there's other things that aren't happening for us right now. And my most impressive, I'm just going to tip my Mellon branded hat to both quarterbacks. Stafford, incredible. Allen, 89.1 overall. The only other game this season, I had to find this, the only other game this season where both quarterbacks graded this high was actually Trevor Lawrence versus Joe Flacco in the Jags' first win of the year when those two went back and forth. I think that game was 37-34. That's the only other game where two quarterbacks graded this high in the same game this year. Both of them, they were fantastic. It was about as, on both sides, almost, I have another thing I'll get to, almost as perfect an offensive game as you could play on both sides of the of this game. It's just a terrific football game for sure. I do that. You go with yours first, and then I have the big gripe because I think there's a couple other guys who deserve some credit here.
Yeah, I mean, so most impressive, it could be a lot of different things. Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, the duo that they are, is unbelievable. 17 catches on 22 targets from the two of them, 254 yards just to those two receivers, 2 touchdowns, over 75% threat percentage. I mean, this is the offense. And it's crazy because every single week, that's no slight to Jordan Whittington or Demarcus Robinson either. Like, good football players. But very clearly, they're going to throw the ball to Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. And every defense knows it, and there's not a damn thing they can do about it. And so it was just an incredible day for both of those two guys. I mean, the catch from Nacua at the sideline.
Oh,
the toe tap catch?
Yeah. The throw on that also.
Yeah, I mean, it's might be catch of the year. I'm not gonna lie. Like, everybody loves the one-handed and like the
Garrett Wilson. I mean,
which Garrett Wilson catch?
The Thursday night one against the Texans. The jump man one.
Good one.
That's
a good one.
I mean, maybe
the cool one's sick.
It's like the biggest. Yeah, it was nasty. I get it.
I think the only reason why I bring it up is because everybody loves to go to the one-handed catches as like catch of the year, but I need to give some love to the toe tap.
It's a funky angle too from the far hash, the opposite hash. I think Stafford threw it from on a route that was only about 12 yards on a crosser, or a horizontal kind of route. And Stafford still had to kind of arc it over like that. Like that's not a normal throw either.
Throw.
To think of that throw makes no sense at all. And that's the luxury of having Matt Stafford, is that he's one of the 3 or 4 guys in the league that can make throws that you think aren't possible. And then the toe tap too is just it feels like we've said it the last few weeks we've been watching games, just how darn good Puka Nacua is.
Yep.
He's just that good.
Yep.
And you talk about the best pairs of receivers in football. We've had Jefferson, Addison already, Brown and Smith in Philly, Chase and Higgins here. These two are right up there. We already saw Cooper Kupp darn near, have the greatest season maybe ever by a receiver a couple of years ago, and Nakua's just as good. It's nuts.
Most disappointing, I guess the Bills' run game. James Cook only gets 6 carries for 20 yards in this one, but very clearly the script was not going to allow them to run the ball as much as they normally like to run the ball.
They got the glory last week.
This is what I'm saying. So I don't really have a most disappointing in this one. Sure, you could look to the defensive side of the ball and you want to be like, whoa, hold on. Defense both give up 40 points. I'm giving so much more credit to the quarterbacks and the offenses than I am really getting on the defense for this one. It was just an unstoppable night for both offenses. Who's your most disappointing?
Okay. I'm going to need an extra second. The 2 things that I'm most concerned with as far as the Bills Super Bowl talk both popped up in this game. One, obviously they gave up 44 points. That's an issue. They are 19th in the league in defensive grade this season. Their 5 highest graded games on defense, all right? They've come against the Colts with Joe Flacco, Jacksonville, Seattle on the road. That was a great game. That was the best defensive game they played all year. Miami with Tua for half the game, and Tennessee. This is still not an elite defense. There are days against teams like that where they look like it, but I still worry about this defense come postseason time when they're playing Kansas City, Baltimore, what have you. The other thing, I'm doing it again. I'm going to keep saying it until someone actually does it. This end-of-game situation, when they were down by 9, I just don't understand it. Again and again, when teams are down 9, 10, or 11. And the big one that's been talked about, and rightfully it was a mistake. You had all 3 timeouts in your pocket. When they got down to the 1 and they ran the quarterback sneak and didn't get it and then burned a timeout, that's not even the biggest mistake. You know where I'm at on this. I was screaming it yesterday. When they got the DPI on 4th and 15, they got the DPI.
Yep.
They got the ball at the 15.
Yep.
They have 3 timeouts and about a minute 10, minute 15 to go. Kick the field goal right there. I'm going to keep yelling this.
You are on this train.
This at least once a week. I see this. The Bills still could have won this game. When you get the DPI and you're down 9, 10, 11, and you need a field goal and a touchdown.
Yep.
You get to the 15. I get it. The touchdown's supposed to be the hard part, and that's what we want. That's the whatever. No, the hard part is getting the football twice. That's the hard part. The DPI got him inside field goal range. Easy field goal range. Kick the damn field goal. You need 10.
Immediately, first down.
On first down, right when you get the DPI. With about a minute, and all 3 timeouts. You didn't even have to onside it if you didn't want to. You just need to stop. If your defense doesn't get a stop.
So you're saying because you kick the field goal instead of going for the touchdown, you allow yourself then to have a better chance of getting the ball twice.
The goal is 10 points, and you have all 3 timeouts. It was perfectly set up for this exact scenario.
Yeah.
And instead, they went for the touchdown. They get to the 1.
I feel like you said this before, 3 weeks ago, and I didn't like it as much. I don't remember what the scenario was.
There may have been less timeouts,
I think there were less
shaky.
timeouts.
This was clear scenario right in front of you. Yes, I'm dead serious. Kick the field goal right after that pass interference.
Because then you don't have to rely on an onside kick because you can't get onside kicks.
There's sometimes I'll yell about this, and it's the onside kick crapshoot part. And to that point, I go, well, at least get there. This was a very real scenario. And if you make that stop, look at how Josh Allen was playing. So, okay, we have to get a touchdown. If there's anyone I trust to get a touchdown with 50 seconds and no timeouts, it's Josh Allen.
Yeah.
He could find a way to do it. Give yourself a shot. And then you compound it with the sneak that didn't work and calling a timeout because you didn't have a second play called. That part's ridiculous. But the first error, again, the goal is 10 points, 9 points, not in some
and
order
feeling
what you
good,
need.
and then an onside.
Oh, I was beyond irritated. I'm still irritated with it. Because you had a shot with 3 timeouts. You had it. There's an end game goal here, not just we need it in this order and the touchdown's the hard part and this and that. That's a spot right there. That's what I talk about when I do this. Is when they got that pass interference, run the field goal team out there.
How much time was left on the clock?
About a minute 10, minute 15. With 3 timeouts.
Right,
you didn't even have to onside it if you didn't want to.
Well, yeah, because the goal is to avoid an onside kick.
Absolutely.
Hold on. Okay, so they score a touchdown, but where's the DPI?
I want to say a minute 10.
Defensive pass interference, which took them to the 16-yard line. So there was 1 minute and 18 seconds left.
If you get a stop, you get the ball back again with probably 55 seconds left.
I mean, the issue, the counterpoint here is that they scored with a minute left.
But they didn't have the timeout. They burned the timeout because that sneak didn't work. If they tried the sneak and then had a second play call and still had 3 timeouts, I'll let it go. But honestly, my process there is after that PI, I'm kicking it. And I don't understand how the goal is not.
I see the timeout now.
7 plus 3 is the same as 3 plus 7. That's the type of math we do around here, just so we're clear. But
if they don't call the timeout, I'm a little bit more.
I might reason with it. There's too much time. There's also my problem
because they scored with a minute left, and if they would have been able to score with a minute left, and even with 50 seconds left, and you're kicking it,
even then I have an argument.
Three timeout. You have an argument if everything goes right in your favor.
Even then I have an argument because you just burned more clock scoring the touchdown.
No. That's the one that obviously you save. That's what I'm saying. If things work out correctly, you're right. Your scenario leaves more room for there to be more time on the clock. But I'm saying it only took them an extra 18 seconds to score a touchdown anyways. That's not bad.
That's a lot of time.
But that's with a timeout.
In that scenario, with the timeout burn, they ruin the whole thing.
Right.
Even an extra 18 seconds burned. I need every one I can get. Again, the first step in this to me is not kicking the field goal.
The first time you brought it up, I don't think I was there with you. For this scenario, I'm sort of there with you.
7 plus 3 is the same as 3 plus 7.
That's how math works.
It is.
I did learn that.
The order does not matter. And I see this once a week from somebody down 9-10, something like this.
With 3 timeouts
where we have to score the touchdown first. We have to. No, you don't have to. You have to score 10. They had a shot to win this game. And they just...
You might have cooked. I don't know yet. I'm not.
Somebody's going to do it one of these times. I'm going to say it enough times until someone does it.
Are you going to sue them if they do it?
Absolutely not.
No?
I will come on this show and make them most impressive immediately, just for that, even if it doesn't work.
If you sue them, it'll give you more money. They're taking your ideas.
I got to patent it.
Yeah. Intellectual property.
That's the shirt. 7 plus 3 is the same as 3 plus 7. That's the shirt. We got to get shirts made. We got to work on that.
Who do you think is going to do it first, an NFL coach or a college coach? I think a college coach is going to do it first.
Oh, it's usually even lower. Usually a high school coach.
That's fair. Somebody in high school is probably already doing it.
All right. I need to go to some high school in Cincinnati.
Somebody in high school is probably already
somewhere
doing
around
it.
here. I need to figure it out. And then
we've got to test this.
And then give it like 8 years and it'll work its way out. Yeah. It's going to work.
Let's move on to the next game. Bears 49ers. 49ers absolutely smacked the crap out of them, 38-13. This game was never close at any point in time, except for when the ball got kicked off and it was 0-0. Top 5 graded San Francisco 49er players in this game. Offensive guard Dominic Pooney. What a season he's having for the rookie. 93.4 overall grade. George Kittle in this one, 91.7. Center Jake Brendel with an 82.6. Linebacker Devondre Campbell, an 80.3. Linebacker D. Winters, a 78.1. And then Brock Purdy, a 90.3 in this game. Chicago side of things, Jonathan Owens, a safety, had an elite 90.5 grade. Offensive tackle Darnell Wright, a 78.6. Wide receiver Rome Odunze, a 74.9. Cornerback Jalen Johnson, 74.0. And then offensive guard Tevin Jenkins, a 72.1. Caleb Williamson, this one, a 52.5. I'll start. Bears offense is bad again. We're back. And I think the worst part about it is Caleb looks hesitant again. I think there was a streak there when Thomas Brown sort of took over as offensive coordinator where I was like, oh, Caleb looks more comfortable. I guess somebody new in charge, somebody new in the headset, Somebody new calling the plays, whatever it is, he's more comfortable than he was when he was under Shane Waldron. The 49ers defense is traditionally good. Not great this year, but he looked hesitant again. 46.1 passing grade, over 3 seconds time to throw. I just think the offense was bad overall. Like, it just, once again, it looked like a very, very difficult offense. And I think Caleb was a big issue in that offense because of how hesitant he looked. There were times where, even with completed throws, like you can just tell in the way he's seeing the field and when he's getting the throws, he's like waiting a second. Okay, and like half a second late. I saw that way too many times, and it gave me flashbacks to when they were really struggling when Shane Waldron was still the offensive coordinator. I was hoping that would not be the case with Thomas Brown when he became the offensive coordinator and now is the interim head coach. But it's after this game, I'm very comfortable just saying Caleb just wasn't great this year. And just take the rookie year and realize that that's okay. It's okay that he wasn't great in his rookie year. But
what's not okay is the structure of their organization and their coaching staff and everything everything around them. That's the part. Understanding the context of it, that's the part that's not. It's not Caleb. Caleb's damn well talented enough to do it. We've seen it in the second half of a lot of these games.
I'm saying that we don't have to freak out about Caleb and say like, oh, Caleb is he's a lost cause or anything like that. Like, he wasn't good in his rookie year. He didn't progress within his rookie year the way I would have liked for him to, but it does not mean that that was void of good things that we saw from him. And it could very well be he just goes, okay, offseason, now I have a chance to catch my breath. We're going to get a whole new coaching staff in here. Let's get a full offseason to work with a lot of this stuff, and let's take everything that I learned my rookie year and hit the ground running next year. So that's just sort of where I'm at with Caleb Williams. I hoped it would look different in this game, but he once again looked hesitant and gun-shy like I had seen in the past.
Yeah, and I mean, with the lack of structure with their coaching staff and the way everything's gone, can't really blame him for that. He's on a second play caller. The second play caller is now the head coach. I mean, it's just that's the part that would stress me out if I were a Bears fan, is everything around Caleb, just like it was kind of everything around Fields. There's just it's just not a stable structure, and it just feels like nothing's ever in lockstep with their coaching staff, with their organization. Until they get that part, I would be worried about not Caleb, but his situation, because the Bears have now done this sort of thing 3 times in a row with Trubisky and then Fields and then Caleb. I would worry about that. Then the fact that he looks hesitant, it's just going to happen when you have that. When you're unsure of the play calls, when you're unsure of what's around you, when you're unsure of the offensive line, that's what it's going to look like.
What do you got?
On the other side, for as bad as the Bears were, I just don't think there was any chance they were beating the 49ers on this specific day anyway. The Niners played by far the best game of the year, and I'll start on offense. 89.1 offensive grade, 6th best in a game by any team this year. Brock Purdy with his highest grade since week 3. The team had their best run blocking grade actually for the entire season. George Kittle tore him to shreds. I think Purdy especially is the most encouraging part, because his previous 5 games, he had a 54.4 passing grade. I was getting worried about Brock Purdy, and I was getting worried about their receivers' ability to separate from press coverage. Now, against the Bears, you don't see any of that because that's not the type of defense they run. It felt like a game where Purdy and Kittle and Shanahan and some other guys, especially offensively, they kind of took out a little rage on the Bears, didn't they?
Yeah.
It just was like, hey, we're going to come in here and you're not going to like the fact that you came in here. That's really – and the Niners, look, I don't know if they can claw their way all the way back to division or playoff contention, but they really needed a day like this after the way the last month and a half has gone, and it was by far the best game I thought they played all season.
Yeah, most impressive for me was George Kittle, 92.8 overall grade, 93.1 receiving grade, 138 receiving yards in the first half. You kind of mentioned it. These are 2 struggling football teams, but one team is a bad team, and it's not San Francisco, and they proved that against Chicago. They are both struggling here in 2024. They've all got things they've both got things that they're dealing with. But one of these teams is bad, and it was not the Niners. And I think that they proved that. Most disappointing was the Bears' defense. 56.2 defensive grade from Chicago, 6th worst in the league this week. Tremaine Edmonds, 54.4 overall grade. DeMarcus Walker, 29.9. Zach Pickens, 45.4. I mean, it just was not a good day for the Bears' defense. And I felt like it could have been, like that was supposed to be the part of the team that was giving them a higher floor, and it really hasn't this year. And I think it goes to, like what you said, more just organizational structure. This is just not a good football team. They are captainless of the ship. All due respect to Thomas Brown. There's too many changes that have happened for this team. There's too much unknown even for them, I feel like, going into the offseason. And that played out on the field. And I'm hoping that they really get the next head coaching hire right, because I think they're in a really good spot for a slingshot to be a good football team, but there's just been way too much chaos within this organization, I think, over the last long time, but certainly over the last calendar year.
For sure. I'll go in the trenches with mine. Most impressive. Third time today out of the 11 or 12 games we're doing that I'm going with the team's right guard, Dominic Puni, the rookie from Kansas. What a home run pick this was. 93.4 overall, 92.1 run block grade in this game, 10 positively graded run blocks in this game. And I don't think that's the first time this year he's done it. He right now is the third highest graded guard in the NFL with at least 300 snaps played. Just ridiculous home run pick at right guard. He played left tackle last year at Kansas, and just a spectacular pick that he'll be a foundational piece for the future for a long time. And then specifically on that Bears defensive line, this was what I was worried about the most on their defense coming into the year. Lowest graded D-line in the league last year. Got off to a better start this year, but 36.8 overall in this game. 6 different players graded under a 50. And since week 9, they are tied with Carolina for the lowest graded defensive line in the league. Where you're still, for as much as we're going to talk about the offense and the coaching, what to do with that side, they need more D linemen. Yeah. More productive.
Yep.
Montez.
They need Austin Booker to be a solid player for them next year moving forward.
They need a lot of guys. They've drafted a lot of young guys. It's just not, Jervon Dexter.
Who's better?
Better, but when you're going through a significant stretch.
I still think they need like an elite interior defensive lineman.
Oh, yeah.
And another good pass rusher. I mean, you're hoping that Austin Booker can be the pass rusher.
Is there a thought? I don't know where they'll be picking in this draft because they already have 4 wins. It's going to be interesting with that part of it where they go, is it O-line? Is it D-line?
Yeah.
Is it Ashton Ginty? I think there's a lot of different options. I think trenches will be the option one way or the other. If it's a Calvin Banks or somebody and we're shuffling the O-line around, or they need an elite pass rusher, for darn sure. I think they like an elite one. Sweat is really good, but he's also out there by himself. And they have, this was a concern for me. They have to get better in the trenches on both sides of the ball.
Packers-Lions, going back to Thursday Night Football, we'll be sort of quick with this one because it was so many days ago. Detroit wins this game 34-31. Top 5 graded players from the Detroit Lions in this one. Linebacker Jack Campbell's at the top of the list with an 85.5. Wide receiver Tim Patrick, a 73.9. Offensive guard Kevin Zeitler, 72.7. Safety Kirby Joseph, a 71.2. And then wide receiver Jamison Williams, a 69.7. Jared Goff in this game, 76.0. And then on Green Bay side of things, defensive tackle Kenny Clark with an 80.2. Wide receiver Dontavian Wicks, a 78.6. Defensive tackle Devontae Wyatt, 74.2. Guard Elkton Jenkins, a 72.9. Offensive tackle Zach Tom, a 72.0. And then Jordan Love, quiet first half, but really came on in the second half, 83.8 overall grade. Your stat that told the story here.
Okay, so I did mention earlier about Jalen Hurts and Jared Goff, how sometimes the Lions are kind of better when they hide Goff. But there was times that they needed him in this game, and he executed this. One thing Jared Goff is going to do, he's going to throw it well over the middle of the field. That's what he does. We don't throw a lot outside the numbers in this offense. We throw right over the middle between linebackers and safeties. In the middle third of the field in this game, Jared Goff, 19 of 23, 191 yards, 2 touchdowns, 88.2 passing grade. This is where the Lions' passing game lives. We see deep in cut after deep in cut after deep in cut, right? And they just keep completing them. And middle of the field coverage is something that has been an issue for the Packers. It was certainly last year. This year they're forcing a few more turnovers, but it's still kind of a problem, especially with their linebackers trying to cover that area of the field. Jared Goff, most attempts of any quarterback in the middle third of the field this year, and since week 4, after a slow start, highest passing grade in that same area since week 4. That's the Lions' passing game. They were able to get to the wheelhouse in their passing game when they needed it, whether it was play action or on third downs, anytime they wanted. Goff is an elite thrower of the football over the middle. If you're going to beat the Lions, you need to make him throw it outside toward the numbers.
Yeah, obviously the stat that told the story that got all the headlines was them going forward on fourth down and sort of winning the game with the offense on the field. I think that everybody points out. I mean, I did as well. But if you even take a step back from that, the real stat that told the story is the Lions' time of possession. They just beat the crap out of you. They just never give you the football. That's the beauty of this team. And then when they do, the defense is so fresh. They're so aggressive. You have so little time The Lions, I haven't checked this week, but I got to think that they're still number one. They were number one in the NFL in most points in the first half. And this team is like, they're gonna score a touchdown basically on their first or second drive. So you know that you're going to have 7 on the board from them on their first or second drive. And a lot of times when that happens, it's a methodical offense. It's a long drive. They're keeping the ball for a while. The defense is they're getting rested. They're getting their wind. They're going to be more aggressive the next time out. It's just they played the perfect complementary football. And because of that, Lions controlled the ball for 36 minutes in this game compared to the Packers 23. They're dictating how the game is played every single week. Lions, 80% on fourth down, 4 for 5 in this game, including the one big one that ended up winning the game for them. 47% on third down. It feels like 47% is almost like a bad day at the office for them, which is crazy. This is one of the most complete football teams you're ever going to find. And anybody can beat anybody any given week, especially when we get into the playoffs. It'd be a shame if this team doesn't make the Super Bowl. There's a lot of fans of teams who are watching this show, Vikings fans, Packers fans, Eagles fans. They're hoping to make the Super Bowl in the NFC. Be a damn shame if this team doesn't make it because of how unbelievable they have been throughout the entire regular season.
And why that time of possession you mentioned is so important is because of all of those defensive injuries. Your defense has
more
your
important,
defense has a much better chance of success if they're only out there for 23 minutes as opposed to anywhere from 30 to 35.
Sure.
Right? And just updating that, they do 174 points they've scored in the first half of games this year, 36 more than anybody else.
Crazy.
They get off to good starts. They run the ball. They throw it over the middle when they need to. This is the Lions have a pretty set formula. For as creative and everything as Ben Johnson is, it's actually very predictable a lot of times how this goes. Is that's what they do. And I just the fourth down, the last one especially, I just want to get to real quick. I think we have to understand with the Lions when you're talking about you need 2 feet and you're taking 2 lead blockers and you're running behind Penny friggin' Sewell. Their odds of converting that are higher than just about anybody else's in football. Mm-hmm. If that was the Seahawks or the Titans or the Jets or somebody else making that exact call, I might hate it. But because it's the Lions and because that's Penei Sewell and because this is Ben Johnson calling plays and getting into the strength of the formation and because it's David Montgomery who's really darn good in the backfield, their chances, we can't sometimes just do these things in a vacuum. Their chances of converting that behind that specific player are higher than anybody else's in football behind their right tackle. So, and again, I get the idea also with the banged up defense, I can't send him back out there. If Dan Campbell was probably thinking if I kick a field goal, we're out of gas on the defensive side. Mm-hmm. We've given up 24 points in that half, in the second half. He already saw that they couldn't make stops. Everything about it to me made sense. I think I get it, it's aggressive, but the idea behind being consistently aggressive is that it works more often than not.
Yes.
It worked 80% of the time in this game.
Yep.
That's fine. If you told him every time it'll work, this will work 80% of the time.
He's taking it.
Every time. He might do it more.
Yeah, every coach would.
Anybody, 80% you have to. Right. So I absolutely love the call. I don't get any of the complaining about that last call.
Nope. And I didn't see, to be fair, I didn't see a lot of people complaining about it. There were a couple people who are I saw on social media who are like,
I've seen
analytics
some,
doesn't really tell you to go for it here, but even the people who posted that outside of just, like people who are just posting numbers from some sort of like simulations, there were a lot of people who were like,
you need 2 feet behind Penei Sewell.
Analytics doesn't really tell you to do this, but I get it. It's one of those things where it's like I get the willingness to be aggressive. And like you said, if you're going to have an aggressive mentality or an aggressive identity, it's a better way to say it, have it.
I've seen
do what you need to do.
I've seen a train of thought where it was good result, bad process.
And for as much,
I don't think in that scenario with his team that's bad process.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into the momentum debate, but there is absolutely something to playing harder and more focused and giving your best for something that you believe in. And for Dan Campbell to be able to walk into that locker room afterwards and be like, I wanted you guys to dictate that football game. I wanted it to be us. We fall on our sword. Nobody else tells us how to play football. We play football the way that we know we can. I mean, if you're a player, how do you not run through a brick wall for that guy? That will give you the chance.
And I think him and Ben Johnson, for just the sake of execution, this sort of thing, it doesn't come out of thin air. This sort of thing is practiced. They work on this all week.
For sure.
Every week.
For sure.
And to me, again, the odds are different when I have Kevin Zeitler and Penei Sewell as the guys I'm running behind. It's a different percentage than you might see in a vacuum on TV with one of those graphics. I think it is. I'd run behind Penei Sewell there too. I mean,
right.
Wouldn't you?
Of course.
Especially with 2 lead blockers and David Montgomery. Yeah, I think it's a different.
Look, I'm a proponent of, I can't remember, was it 4th and 1? What was it?
They needed 2 feet.
So I'm a big proponent of, you can't pick up a yard, you suck anyways.
I'm in on that.
4th and 1?
Yeah.
Go pick up a yard. Football is a tough game. People on the other side of the ball get paid. I understand that. And there are some fun 4th down stands that we have seen. I get it.
And he's right.
I get it.
He's right.
Go pick up a yard.
He's right, especially with his defense right now, that there is a value in winning the game with the ball in your hands. Every coach says that. We want to either make the last kick in a close game like that, or we want to take a knee. We want to win with the game. We want to win the game with the ball in our hands, and that's what he did. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Really quick, Jordan Love, 2 big-time throws, 8.7 big-time throw percentage. He's getting back to sort of that flamethrower type of Jordan Love, and I don't say that as negatively. I love that when Jordan Love is aggressive and when he is, pointing and shooting deep down the field. This Packers offense is a lot of fun, and we saw that, and that was a big catalyst for the comeback for them to be able to keep this game close to the very end. So I like that from Jordan Love. Most disappointing, Josh Myers, just overall PFF grades not great in this game. 61.9 passing grade this season, a 13.2 pass blocking grade in this game, 3 pressures allowed from him as the center. So just disappointing from him from a grades perspective. What about you? Most impressive, most disappointing?
I'm going linebackers on both sides. Jack Campbell. Look, you need somebody to step up when there's 13 guys on IR, was it? I think something like that on defense. Jack Campbell, 85.5, career high grade, 83.3 run defense grade. Had a hit as a pass rusher, no catches allowed, led the team in tackles. Jack Campbell, if you can build on this is the type of alpha middle linebacker performance. This is why they drafted this guy in the first round. And maybe if this is the game where it jump starts, he starts coming around, that's a big add. And then the Packers linebackers really struggled. Edgerrin Cooper was out in this game. Isaiah McDuffie, Eric Wilson, Quay Walker, they combined to allow 16 catches for 127 yards and 2 touchdowns. If your linebackers aren't good in space and they don't know where they're at in zone coverage especially, I mentioned Jared Goff throwing over the middle, that's who he's going at. He's throwing it right by their ear holes, and they were the victims in this one. Also, McDuffie and Wilson struggled in run defense. I still think at linebacker this is a work in progress, especially with Cooper out. The middle of this Packers defense, McKinney's great. We know he's great. The rest of it still needs some work. And I think that's really still the weakness for me for the Packers is right in the inside, playing teams like the Eagles and Lions in the trenches.
Appreciate everybody watching and listening to the show. Once again, if you guys want to see all the PFF statistics that we talked about here on this show, you can do so if you get a PFF Plus subscription. Go over to PFF.com or get subscribe.pff.com to find one of those PFF Plus subscriptions. We'll be able to hook you guys up and give you all sorts of data that you're absolutely going to love. 14 weeks in the books.
I think bye weeks are done now, aren't they?
Bye weeks are done.
Bye weeks are done. Oh, we got full episodes coming
Full
down.
episodes, pedal to the metal moving forward. We got 4 games left for every single team. I know, we might have to be a little bit more precise. We might actually be a little bit more TV time for the next couple of for the next couple of episodes because we had a jam-packed one. We already talked about some incredible games that we have coming up in Week 15. We're going to be back here same time next week to recap it all. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That's Dalton Wasserman. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time as we recap Week 15. Same time. See you guys then.